What makes Batman so endlessly fascinating? Is it the Batcave, the Batmobile, or maybe his unmatched ability to strike fear into the hearts of Gotham's criminals? Perhaps, but there's something deeper, something far more intriguing that keeps fans returning to the Dark Knight: the mysteries. For decades, fans have speculated, theorized, and uncovered hidden truths about the man who stands as Gotham's protector. From the reasons behind his relentless war on crime to the mysteries of his complex psyche, these stories have sparked countless what-ifs, and some of these questions have evolved into full-blown theories that challenge everything we think we know about the Dark Knight. In this video, we'll explore the most compelling and mind-bending Batman theories out there, the ones that make you stop in your tracks, question everything, and maybe, just maybe, make you believe that these theories were part of Batman's grand design all along. From the unsettling notion that Batman is not the hero we think he is, but might actually be Gotham's greatest villain, to the chilling idea that the Joker might not only be Batman's nemesis, but his true counterpart. There's no shortage of dark twists waiting to be uncovered. So whether you've followed every comic or you're just discovering the mysteries of Gotham's protector, sit back as we unravel the most perplexing, mind-bending Batman theories that might change your perception of the Caped Crusader forever. Let's begin with one of the most unsettling theories of all. What if Batman is the true villain of Gotham? Batman is Gotham's true villain. At first glance, the idea that Batman might actually be the villain of Gotham seems absurd, almost laughable. How could Gotham's beloved protector, the one who strikes fear into the hearts of criminals and stands as the ultimate symbol of justice, possibly be a villain? But when you take a step back and look at the larger picture, the theory starts to take shape. Could it be that Batman, instead of being the solution to Gotham's suffering, is the very reason the city remains trapped in a never-ending cycle of crime and corruption? Gotham is a city built on chaos, a city that thrives on darkness and disorder. It's a place where corruption runs deep, crime runs rampant, and hope is a rare commodity. Enter Batman. With his cape, his gadgets, and his unwavering commitment to justice, Batman wages a solitary war against the criminal underworld. But in doing so, does he inadvertently keep the city in a perpetual state of chaos, unable to heal, unable to grow? Consider this. Every time Batman defeats a villain, a new one emerges to take their place. The more Batman fights, the more enemies seem to appear, each one more dangerous and more deranged than the last. Could it be that Batman's very presence in Gotham has created the need for these villains, that each time he defeats one threat, he inadvertently inspires another? Gotham might need Batman, but does it also need the chaos and destruction that follows in his wake? This theory takes the bold stance that Batman's war on crime is not a battle he can ever win. No matter how many villains he defeats, no matter how many criminals he locks away, Gotham will never be free of its darkness. Batman's obsession with his crusade, his refusal to let go, is what keeps the city from ever truly healing. And maybe, just maybe, Gotham's suffering is not a consequence of Batman's efforts, but a direct result of them. Let's break down why this theory might not be as outlandish as it first seems. 1. The no-kill rule. A hero sips dilemma. One of Batman's most defining principles is his no-kill rule. He refuses to take the life of a criminal, no matter how dangerous or irredeemable they may be. This moral stance is central to Batman's identity, and it is one of the key elements that separates him from the very criminals he fights. At first glance, this seems like an admirable code. Batman values life, believes in redemption, and sees himself as the protector of Gotham, someone who upholds justice in a world where it's often hard to find. But let's examine this rule more closely. Gotham is a city riddled with dangerous criminals. It's a place where the line between good and evil is often blurred. Batman's refusal to kill means that the criminals he fights, the Joker, Two-Face, Bane, always get another chance to escape, to return, to wreak havoc. Each time Batman brings one of them down, they return with a new plan, a new scheme, and more violence. The Joker, in particular, has shown a shocking resilience, always coming back stronger and more destructive after each encounter. What if Batman's no-kill rule isn't a noble decision, but a strategic choice that ensures Gotham will never truly be rid of its most dangerous threats? By refusing to kill, Batman ensures that the villains will always come back, and with them, a fresh wave of chaos. The more he fights, the more the cycle continues, with new villains emerging to take the place of the ones he's taken down. This cycle of violence is not just a result of Batman's crusade, it's perpetuated by his very refusal to take decisive action. Gotham will always need Batman because Gotham will never be free of the criminals who haunt it. And in a way, Batman's unwillingness to kill ensures that he will always have a role in the city's struggle. Is that the mark of a hero? Or is it the mark of someone who is unknowingly keeping Gotham trapped in its never-ending spiral of darkness? 2. Batman SEPs. Control over his allies. A web of manipulation. If Batman's rule in Gotham wasn't already problematic enough, there's another layer to this theory: his relationship with his allies. Batman is often depicted as a lone wolf, a solitary figure who doesn't trust anyone. And while it's true that he has occasionally worked with others, like Robin, Batgirl, and Nightwing, it's clear that he controls every aspect of their work. Think about the way Batman recruits his partners. He doesn't just train them to fight crime. He molds them into his vision of justice. Robin, his first sidekick, is a perfect example. Batman takes in a young boy, Dick Grayson, who has suffered a great tragedy, and trains him to fight crime. But over time, Grayson begins to question Batman's methods. The more he becomes involved in Batman's world, the more he realizes that Batman's obsession with justice is an all-consuming force, one that leaves little room for compassion or redemption. Eventually, Grayson breaks away, becoming Nightwing and carving out his own path, far from Batman's shadow. But this pattern repeats itself. Batgirl, another member of Batman's extended family, also eventually breaks away from Batman's tight grip. What's striking about these departures is not just the fact that they happen, but the reason behind them. Batman's manipulation of those he considers his family isn't just about protecting Gotham, it's about maintaining control. Every time one of his allies leaves, it's not just a loss for Batman personally, it's a loss for his vision of what Gotham should be. The theory here is that Batman isn't just recruiting these individuals to fight crime. He's manipulating them to fulfill his need for control. He surrounds himself with people who are forced to carry out his vision, even if it means they lose their own identities in the process. Could it be that Batman is less of a mentor and more of a puppeteer, creating a family not to help Gotham, but to fulfill his own need to impose his order on the city? 3. Gotham SIPs. Eternal need for Batman. A city that can never heal. Gotham is a city that exists in a perpetual state of crisis. Whether it's a new villain terrorizing the streets, or Gotham's corrupt officials working against the greater good, Gotham is always teetering on the edge of total collapse. And Batman is there, in the shadows, doing what he does best, fighting the criminals, keeping the peace and making sure the city never fully descends into chaos. But what if Gotham's never-ending need for Batman isn't a sign of hope, it's a sign of despair? The theory here suggests that Gotham could never heal as long as Batman remains. Gotham's dependence on Batman to maintain order is a strange and twisted form of stability. Every time Batman locks up a criminal or foils a plot, he creates a new problem, a new villain who will rise to take the place of the defeated. Gotham is constantly caught in a loop of destruction and renewal, with Batman acting as both the cause and the solution. Could it be that Gotham will never escape its cycle of darkness because it has become so dependent on Batman's presence? Batman's refusal to leave, to let go of his war on crime, might be the very reason Gotham can never heal. The city needs him to survive, but in doing so, it remains trapped in a cycle of violence. If Batman were to retire, would Gotham implode, or would it finally have the chance to rebuild itself? 4. The Joker, Batman's set's true counterpart. And then, of course, there's the Joker. Batman's arch-nemesis, his opposite, his dark mirror. But what if the Joker is more than just a villain? What if he's not just Batman's enemy, but his true counterpart? The Joker and Batman are often portrayed as two sides of the same coin. One is order, the other is chaos. But what if this isn't just a metaphor? What if Batman and the Joker are not opposites at all, but two parts of a twisted whole, created and bound together by fate? Some believe that the Joker is more than just a force of chaos in Batman's life. What if the Joker understands something that Batman refuses to accept, that they are both products of the same dark forces? The Joker's obsession with Batman isn't just about destroying him, it's about showing him that their fates are entwined. The Joker is Batman's mirror image, the embodiment of everything Batman rejects in himself. Batman fights to uphold order and justice, but the Joker embraces chaos because he understands that order is an illusion. The Joker isn't just a villain, he's a reflection of Batman's own darkness, the part of Batman he refuses to acknowledge. 5. Batman's identity. Is he more than just Bruce Wayne? At the heart of the Batman mythos lies one of the greatest mysteries, Bruce Wayne. Who is the man behind the mask, and what is his true identity? On the surface, Bruce Wayne is the billionaire philanthropist, the public face of Wayne Enterprises. He's charming, composed, and effortlessly plays the role of the playboy, but beneath this carefully constructed persona lies the tortured soul of a man driven by an insatiable desire for justice. What if Bruce Wayne, the man, is the mask and Batman is the true identity? This theory proposes that Bruce Wayne was a persona created as a way for Bruce to cope with the trauma of his parents' death. He adopted the facade of a wealthy, carefree playboy to blend into society, to suppress the darkness and pain that constantly gnawed at him. But deep down, Bruce Wayne was never real. Batman, the vigilante, is the truest form of Bruce's existence, driven by a deep need for vengeance, order, and justice. This theory dives into the psychological complexity of Bruce Wayne. Could it be that Bruce Wayne was never the real person, just a shell that Bruce created to survive? What if Batman's obsession with crime fighting isn't just about saving Gotham, but about constructing an identity around a cause, the cause of justice, something that consumes him entirely? If Batman is indeed Bruce's true self, what does that say about his purpose? Could Bruce Wayne, as the public persona, be just a role he plays to hide the darker, more powerful force within him? 6. Batman, the immortal vigilante. A theory that has gained traction over the years is that Batman is not just a man, but something more, something eternal. We've seen Batman in countless timelines and alternate universes. There are versions of him in the future, in different realities, and in different forms. Could it be that Batman transcends time itself? The immortal Batman theory suggests that Batman has lived for centuries, perhaps even millennia, always taking on the mantle of Gotham's protector. There are clues scattered across different Batman stories that hint at a deeper, more profound connection between Batman and the city he vows to protect. What if Gotham's darkness is so deep, so ingrained in its very fabric, that it draws Batman to it again and again in every possible timeline? This theory draws on a cosmic level, suggesting that Batman might be part of a greater, almost mythological cycle. A cycle where Gotham will always need him, and Batman will always rise to answer that call. This theory explores the possibility that Batman is more than just a man in a cape. He is a symbol, an idea that constantly reincarnates throughout history, forever linked to the city's fate. What if Batman's immortality is tied to Gotham's own never-ending struggle with crime and darkness? Perhaps Batman's true purpose is not only to protect Gotham, but to ensure that it never forgets the shadow of the Bat, a symbol that echoes throughout time, never fully vanishing. 7. Batman's hidden power. Could he be a metahuman? We often see Batman portrayed as the ultimate human, no superpowers, just sheer determination, intellect, and physical skill. But what if Batman isn't as normal as we think? What if, buried deep beneath the surface, Batman has powers that he keeps hidden, even from himself? This theory proposes that Batman may actually be a metahuman, someone with powers that have been suppressed or repressed due to his trauma. There are multiple instances throughout Batman's history where he exhibits feats that seem beyond human capability. His ability to anticipate his opponent's moves, to calculate complex plans with near-perfect precision, and his uncanny ability to escape seemingly impossible situations might not just be a result of his training, they could be linked to some hidden power or ability. What if Batman's true potential is far beyond what he shows the world? Some theorize that he might possess an enhanced form of perception, a kind of bat sense that goes beyond what we see in the comics. This ability could allow him to read people, predict their movements, or even sense danger before it happens. Imagine a Batman who is not just human, but possesses a secret power that allows him to stay several steps ahead of his enemies. This hidden power would add another layer to Batman's complexity. If he is indeed a metahuman, why would he hide it? Is it because he believes his humanity is what makes him strong, or is it because he fears what might happen if he were to embrace his full potential? 8. Batman's Sif's obsession, a manifestation of self-loathing. Batman's relentless pursuit of justice isn't just a way to rid Gotham of crime, it's a deeper reflection of his own self-loathing. This theory argues that Batman's obsession with defeating criminals, his need to control Gotham, and his refusal to let anyone help him are all manifestations of his own inner demons. Bruce Wayne's trauma runs deep. The murder of his parents left him emotionally scarred, but rather than addressing the grief and pain, Bruce channeled it into becoming Batman. Every criminal he defeats is, in a way, a manifestation of his own guilt and self-hatred. Batman's greatest enemy might not be the Joker or Bane. It could be the part of himself that he cannot forgive. His obsessive need to fight crime is a reflection of his own guilt and the belief that he must atone for his parents' death. This theory suggests that Batman's crusade is less about saving Gotham and more about saving himself. Could it be that Batman is trying to redeem himself for the loss of his parents, believing that by eliminating crime, he can somehow absolve his soul? Each villain he defeats might represent a part of his psyche that he needs to conquer, and the cycle continues, with Batman never feeling truly free from the weight of his own self-loathing. 9. The Batman who laughs. What if Batman became the Joker? If we're exploring the possibility of Batman being more than just a man, then what if he becomes the very thing he fears the most? The Batman who laughs is a terrifying alternate version of Batman who has crossed the line, not just in his methods, but in his very essence. This version of Batman embraces the darkness and chaos that he has spent his entire life fighting against. After facing the Joker and enduring a dark twist, he becomes a horrific hybrid of Batman and the Joker. What if this is Batman's inevitable fate? What if the constant fight against the criminal underworld, the emotional toll of his trauma, and his unyielding code of justice push him into madness? The Batman who laughs represents the idea that Batman's obsession with control could eventually lead him to embrace chaos himself. This theory is chilling because it suggests that, deep down, Batman is no different from the criminals he hunts. What if his greatest fear is not the Joker, but the possibility that one day he will become the very thing he swore to destroy? The Batman who laughs is a grim reminder that the line between hero and villain is razor thin, and it's a line that Batman might one day cross. 11. Batman sits eternal war, the idea of never-ending struggle. One of the core aspects of Batman's character is his unwavering dedication to the fight against crime. Every night, he suits up to patrol the streets of Gotham, always vigilant, always watching. But what if Batman's war isn't just against crime, but against something far more personal? What if his perpetual fight is a way to stave off his own demons, preventing him from confronting the darkness within himself? This theory suggests that Batman's war against crime is actually an extension of his internal struggle. His refusal to stop fighting, to ever take a break, is because he fears what will happen if he allows himself to rest. Without crime to fight, what would Batman be? Would he finally have to face the trauma he's buried for so long? Would the grief over his parents' death consume him? Would his identity as Batman dissolve, leaving him with nothing? Each night that Batman fights crime is another night that he pushes aside his own emotions. Each criminal he defeats is a small victory over the dark thoughts that haunt him. But the more he wins, the more it feels like he's trapped in a never-ending battle, a battle that has no end, no resolution. It is an eternal struggle, not just against Gotham's villains, but against the very nature of who Batman is. What if this theory is true? What if Batman has created a war he can never truly win because it's the only thing keeping him from confronting his own pain? In this way, Batman's identity isn't just built on fighting crime, but on never allowing himself to stop, to heal, or to rest. The real villain of Batman's world may not be the criminals of Gotham, but the psychological forces driving him to fight forever. 12. The Bat's legacy. Does Batman create his own successors? In the world of Batman, the Bat family, Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and others all play crucial roles in his crusade against crime. But what if Batman's obsession with creating heroes isn't about saving Gotham, but about creating a legacy of power that he can control? This theory argues that Batman doesn't just mentor his allies, he intentionally shapes them to be his successors in an endless cycle. Batman's relationship with his allies is complex and often rooted in his own needs. Take Robin, for example. Batman doesn't simply recruit a sidekick, he selects, trains, and pushes them to live up to his own ideals. But could it be that deep down, Batman isn't just preparing his allies to fight crime, but to one day replace him? It's as if he believes that Gotham and the world will always need Batman. When one version of Batman eventually fades, he needs a new one to take his place. This theory explores the idea that Batman has intentionally built a family not just to help him, but to ensure that his crusade never ends. He creates successors who take on the mantle of Batman so that the cycle of crime fighting continues. But the question remains, is this truly altruistic, or is it an attempt to create a legacy that cannot be undone? Perhaps Batman's real fear is not that Gotham will be left without a protector, but that without a successor, his life's work would be meaningless. Could this be the true reason behind his obsessive need to take on and mold new heroes? What if Batman's real reason for mentoring these heroes is rooted in a deeper desire to never be forgotten, to always have a presence in Gotham's fight against crime? His legacy is more than just a symbol. It's an empire of shadows built on his own rules, his own vision. And in this theory, he's not just building a team, he's creating an unbroken line of Batmen to carry on his war forever. 13. Batman sips fear, the one thing that could break him. Everyone knows that Batman's greatest strength is his mind. He is often described as the world's greatest detective, able to solve the most complex puzzles and defeat even the most cunning of foes. But what if there is something that Batman truly fears, something so terrifying that even he can't control it? While Batman fears nothing on the surface, there are several deeper, darker things that haunt him. One of the most chilling aspects of this theory is that Batman's greatest fear isn't death, failure, or even the loss of Gotham. It's the idea of losing control. Batman has spent years constructing his perfect image, an image of a man who can control everything and everyone around him. But what happens when he can no longer maintain that control? What happens when his carefully constructed world crumbles, when the bat becomes nothing more than a symbol, a relic of the past? This theory proposes that Batman's greatest fear is the loss of control over himself and his environment. Gotham, his Bat family, his very existence, all of it is a system that Batman meticulously controls. But what if that control is slipping? What if the Joker, the one villain who seems to always outsmart him, represents the chaos that Batman fears could destroy everything he's built? There are also deeper psychological elements at play here. Batman's fear of losing control is also tied to his childhood trauma, the day his parents were murdered in front of him. That moment was when Batman lost control over his own life, and ever since, he's done everything in his power to ensure that nothing is left to chance. But what if, in the end, the loss of control is inevitable? What if Batman's meticulous plans and strategies are just a futile attempt to control a chaotic world that no one can truly tame? 14. Batman, a product of Gotham's own corruption. The dark city of Gotham is almost a character in itself in Batman's world. The towering buildings, the gritty streets, the sense of corruption and decay that seems to seep into every corner of the city. Gotham is a place where hope is fleeting, and the line between good and evil is constantly shifting. But what if Batman's existence is less about saving Gotham and more about embodying the city's own darkness? This theory explores the idea that Batman is not the city's savior, but a product of its corruption. Gotham created Batman as much as Batman created Gotham. The city's crime, its moral decay, its inability to change, all of these things gave birth to the Dark Knight. But in a twisted turn of fate, Gotham's corruption may have also shaped Batman's identity. What if Batman is the city's dark reflection? What if he is the very embodiment of the corruption and chaos that defines Gotham? In this theory, Batman represents the darkness that Gotham can never escape. His crusade against crime is merely a symptom of a deeper, more insidious problem: Gotham's inability to change. Batman, in this sense, isn't a hero. He is a product of the city's decay, a mirror image of the city's moral bankruptcy. Every time Batman defeats a villain, the city's corruption only deepens. The more Batman fights, the more he becomes intertwined with Gotham's dark soul. Could it be that Gotham needs Batman not because he's a hero, but because he is the city's very reflection, its dark mirror? Gotham's twisted, cyclical nature may ensure that Batman's war is never truly won, just as Gotham will never truly be free of the darkness that runs through its veins. 15. Batman as a puppet. Who is really pulling the strings? A popular and chilling theory in the Batman universe is that Batman isn't entirely the one pulling the strings. What if someone or something else is manipulating him, controlling his actions from behind the scenes? This theory proposes that Batman is actually a puppet, with his every move being orchestrated by a hidden force. The mastermind behind Batman's actions could be someone like Ra's al Ghul, who has repeatedly tried to manipulate Batman for his own purposes. It could also be a more subtle force, something that has been pulling the strings from the very beginning of Batman's career. What if Batman's endless war on crime isn't just his personal mission, but part of a larger hidden agenda? What if Gotham's corruption and the endless parade of villains are not just random occurrences, but part of a much larger design? Could it be that Batman has been part of a grand plan all along, one he's never fully understood? Perhaps the Joker, in his own chaotic way, is part of this plan, pushing Batman further into madness with each encounter. In this theory, Batman's free will is an illusion. He's a player in a larger game, a game he's never fully understood. Could the puppet master behind Gotham's crime be the true villain of the story, using Batman as a pawn in a much more elaborate scheme? 16. The Batman who never was. Could Bruce Wayne have taken another path? We know Batman's origin story. Bruce Wayne, a young boy, watches as his parents are gunned down in a dark alley. And from that moment, he swears to never let another soul suffer like he did. But what if Bruce had made a different choice? What if he had not become Batman? This theory explores the possibility of a parallel timeline where Bruce Wayne never dons the cape. Instead, he uses his wealth and influence to become a force for change through traditional political and social means. What if, instead of becoming Gotham's protector, he became a powerful figure in the city's development, reforming it from within? In this alternate scenario, Bruce's trauma still shapes him, but instead of becoming a masked vigilante, he focuses his energies on rebuilding Gotham through social programs, technological advancements, and political reforms. The absence of Batman changes Gotham's dynamic, and perhaps crime becomes less rampant, or perhaps it grows even worse without a figure like Batman keeping it in check. This theory challenges the very core of Batman's existence. What if Bruce Wayne wasn't destined to be Batman at all? Could the Dark Knight never have existed if circumstances had been different, if Bruce had chosen a different path? 17. Batman and his moral code. A prison or a beacon. One of Batman's most defining characteristics is his strict moral code. Above all else, he refuses to kill. His no-kill rule is a guiding principle of his entire existence. It defines how he operates and sets him apart from the very criminals he fights. But what if this moral code is more of a prison than a beacon? Could Batman's refusal to kill be his greatest strength or his greatest weakness? This theory explores the possibility that Batman's unwavering moral code keeps him trapped in an endless loop of moral conflict and failure. Every time he faces a villain who is beyond redemption, a Joker, a Bane, or a Ra's al Ghul, Batman's refusal to kill prevents him from ending the cycle of violence once and for all. These villains return, time and again, growing more dangerous with each confrontation because Batman's moral compass demands he give them another chance. What if Batman's no-kill rule is not a noble trait, but rather an indication of his inability to break free from the trauma of his past? His parents' deaths haunted him for his entire life, but instead of confronting his grief, Batman channels it into a self-imposed prison, one in which he is bound by a set of rules that only prolong the suffering of Gotham. His code prevents him from truly addressing the darkness within himself, locking him in an eternal struggle where the boundaries of right and wrong are always in flux. Perhaps Batman's true test isn't in defeating Gotham's criminals, but in overcoming the shackles of his own moral code. What if, in order to save Gotham, Batman must first confront the truth that sometimes evil must be eradicated with finality, no matter the consequences? 18. Batman's detective skills. What if they're superhuman? Everyone knows that Batman is the world's greatest detective, but what if his abilities go beyond mere intellect and training? This theory suggests that Batman's detective skills might actually be far more than just human capability. What if Batman's mind operates at a level far beyond what we consider possible for a normal person? In the comics, Batman often seems to have an uncanny ability to predict his enemies' moves, uncover hidden patterns, and solve cases that would stump even the most brilliant minds. Could these abilities be more than just the product of his genius intellect and intense training? What if Batman's mind possesses an almost supernatural quality, allowing him to process information, anticipate events, and read people in a way that seems almost otherworldly? This theory suggests that Batman's success as a detective could be due to some form of heightened cognition, a form of hyperdetection that allows him to perceive the world in ways that others simply cannot. He might be able to access and analyze data faster than any ordinary human brain could, or even sense danger before it happens, like a modern-day Sherlock Holmes with powers beyond human comprehension. Could Batman's extraordinary mind be the result of some hidden mutation or scientific enhancement, or is it possible that he has unlocked an untapped potential within himself, something that goes beyond the limits of human cognition? If Batman's detective skills are more than human, what does that mean for his approach to crime fighting? Is he still the self-made hero we've always known, or has something else been at work behind the scenes? 19. The influence of Ra's al Ghul, Batman's dark mentor. Throughout Batman's career, one of his most dangerous and morally complex foes is Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Assassins. Ra's is a man driven by a singular vision to purge the world of its corruption and create a new order. His methods are brutal, his goals radical, and his ideology challenging. But what if Ra's al Ghul is not just Batman's enemy, but his dark mentor? This theory suggests that Batman's own path, his obsession with justice and order, may be a twisted reflection of Ra's al Ghul's teachings. While Batman and Ra's are often at odds, their motivations are strikingly similar. Both seek to impose their own vision of order on a chaotic world. But where Ra's seeks to destroy and rebuild, Batman operates within the confines of the existing system, albeit one he sees as deeply flawed. Could it be that Batman's moral code and his unrelenting fight against crime are in part influenced by the very man he opposes? Ra's al Ghul's vision of world domination through purification contrasts with Batman's own fight for justice. However, at their core, both men are consumed by the belief that they can and must save the world, and in doing so, they each become obsessed with controlling the fate of those around them. Batman's refusal to kill and his desire for justice, while seemingly noble, may have been shaped in part by Ra's philosophical influence. After all, Ra's sought to recruit Batman to his cause on several occasions, recognizing the potential for greatness in him. Could it be that Batman is not just a man shaped by Gotham, but also by his encounters with Ra's, whose ideology challenges him at every turn? In this theory, Batman's eternal struggle between order and chaos, between his moral code and the need for decisive action, is the result of the lessons Ra's al Ghul taught him. Lessons that Batman can never fully escape, no matter how much he denies them. 20. Batman and the superhero community. The Dark Knight. Isolation. Batman's relationship with other superheroes is one of the most interesting aspects of his character. He is often portrayed as the loner, the one hero who does not fit into the mold of the traditional superhero team player. Unlike Superman, Wonder Woman, or the Flash, who all embrace teamwork, Batman prefers to work alone, operating in the shadows and avoiding unnecessary collaboration. But what if Batman's isolation is not just a choice, but a result of something deeper? What if Batman is incapable of truly connecting with other superheroes because of his fear of losing control? This theory argues that Batman's rejection of the superhero community stems from a deep subconscious need to maintain complete control over every aspect of his mission. In the Justice League, Batman is often portrayed as the dark counterpart to the more optimistic heroes, someone who is skeptical of teamwork and believes that working with others could compromise his goals. Could Batman's refusal to work with others be a sign of his deeper psychological issues? What if Batman is afraid that relying on others could cause him to lose his sense of identity, his sense of control over his crusade? Batman's war on crime is deeply personal, and the thought of sharing that responsibility with others might feel like an erosion of his purpose. Perhaps Batman's distance from the Justice League and his insistence on being a solitary figure stems from a fear of vulnerability, a fear that if he lets others in, he will lose the very thing that defines him: control. The theory also suggests that Batman's lack of trust in others is part of his tragic flaw. His inability to connect with people on a deep emotional level is why he is often seen as cold, distant, and emotionally unavailable. His relationship with Gotham itself, a city that he believes can only be saved through his own efforts, further isolates him. In a way, Batman might not just be fighting crime in Gotham, he might be fighting his own need for connection and companionship. 21. Batman Sip's legacy. Will he ever find peace? Batman's war on crime has spanned decades, and his legacy is etched into the very fabric of Gotham. He has fought countless villains, saved Gotham from destruction on numerous occasions, and inspired generations of heroes. But despite all his victories, Batman remains a tortured soul, never fully at peace with himself or the world he's created. This theory questions whether Batman will ever truly find peace, both within himself and in his mission. Throughout his career, Batman has fought for justice, but he has also created his own personal prison. His obsession with crime fighting has defined him for so long that it has become his very identity. The question that lingers is, can Batman ever retire? Can he ever find a way to live a life free from the constant weight of his responsibility? Perhaps Batman's greatest struggle isn't defeating crime. It's finding a way to live a life beyond the bat. Could his need to be Batman be the very thing that prevents him from finding peace? Every time he comes close to finding happiness, something pulls him back into the shadows. He's created a cycle of pain and sacrifice that seems endless. This theory raises an unsettling possibility. Perhaps Batman's legacy will never be one of peace or redemption, but one of eternal struggle. As long as Gotham exists, Batman will be there, a symbol of unyielding determination, yes, but also a prisoner to his own mission. 22. The role of Alfred, Batman's true moral compass. While Batman may be seen as the Dark Knight of Gotham, it's often his loyal butler, Alfred Pennyworth, who serves as his true moral compass. But what if Alfred's role in Batman's life is far more significant than we realize? What if Alfred isn't just a caretaker and mentor, but the very person who prevents Batman from becoming a villain himself? This theory suggests that Alfred is the key to keeping Batman grounded, ensuring that his crusade never tips into madness. Alfred has always been the voice of reason in Batman's life, serving as a father figure to Bruce Wayne after the death of his parents. However, Alfred's role might be even more critical than just offering advice. What if Alfred is not just a protector of Batman's body, but of his soul? Alfred's actions often walk a fine line between being a supportive mentor and a harsh critic, and it's possible that he plays a central role in keeping Batman from crossing the line. Without Alfred, could Batman have fallen into the same trap that so many of his foes do? Obsession and self-destruction. Could Alfred's steadying influence be what prevents Batman from turning Gotham into a totalitarian state, governed by his rigid rules? This theory could delve into Alfred's deeper knowledge and understanding of Bruce's psyche. What if Alfred is not just a servant but a partner, aware of the psychological toll Batman's mission takes on Bruce? The idea that Alfred in his quiet wisdom is the unsung hero who keeps Batman on track is a fascinating one. He might be the true reason Batman hasn't yet lost himself to the darkness, the reason he hasn't completely embraced the chaos that Gotham breeds. Alfred isn't just a caretaker for Bruce Wayne, he's the emotional anchor in the storm of Batman's life. 23. Batman Sep's obsession with the Joker. A strange symbiosis. One of the most fascinating and perplexing dynamics in the Batman mythos is the relationship between Batman and the Joker. For years they have been locked in an eternal struggle, Batman with his desire for justice and the Joker with his desire for chaos. But what if their relationship goes deeper than just hero and villain? What if Batman and the Joker are not opposites, but rather two sides of the same coin? This theory argues that Batman and the Joker are not simply enemies, but two parts of the same larger psychological equation. Batman's obsession with justice, order, and control mirrors the Joker's obsession with chaos, anarchy, and destruction. However, what if this symbiotic relationship exists because, deep down, Batman needs the Joker as much as the Joker needs him? Every time Batman defeats the Joker only comes back stronger, more twisted, and more dangerous. And in turn, every time the Joker defeats Batman, it forces the Dark Knight to evolve, to adapt, and to face the darker side of his own psyche. The Joker challenges everything Batman believes in, and in doing so, the Joker forces Batman to confront his deepest fears, his inability to truly stop crime, his inability to ever truly bring peace to Gotham. In a twisted way, Batman and the Joker might need each other. Batman needs the Joker to prove that his mission is worthwhile, while the Joker needs Batman to validate his existence in a world that is otherwise chaotic. They are locked in a deadly dance, constantly pushing each other to their limits. What if, in the end, the Joker is not just Batman's greatest enemy, but his greatest ally? The person who will ultimately drive him to become more than he ever imagined. 24. The fate of Gotham. Is Gotham beyond saving? Throughout his entire career, Batman has fought tirelessly to save Gotham from its endless cycle of corruption and crime. But what if Gotham is simply beyond saving? What if no matter how hard Batman tries, the city will always return to chaos, simply because it is part of its very nature? This theory explores the idea that Gotham is not just a city, but a reflection of the darkness within Batman himself. Gotham is a city of contradictions. It is both a beacon of hope and a cesspool of corruption. The criminals who rule Gotham, the Joker, Two-Face, and others, are merely extensions of the city's own soul. They are not outliers, but products of the city's decay. Could it be that Gotham was always doomed to remain a city of darkness, forever in need of a hero? Batman may fight to save Gotham, but his very presence may be reinforcing the city's need for destruction. Every villain he defeats only serves to fuel the chaos that Gotham thrives on. Could Gotham's destiny be tied to Batman's failure? Is it possible that Gotham will never be saved because it feeds on the very thing that makes Batman who he is, his obsession with control and order? This theory suggests that Batman's fight is a futile one, that Gotham's fate is sealed because the city is too broken, too ingrained in its own darkness to ever truly change. Batman might be a symbol of hope, but Gotham might never be more than a reflection of Batman's own inability to escape the past. Could Batman's true victory be in realizing that Gotham was never meant to be saved, that it is a place that requires a dark night to keep it in balance, even if that balance is one of perpetual destruction? 25. Batman sits influence on Gotham, a legacy of fear. Batman is known for striking fear into the hearts of criminals. His presence alone is enough to make even the most dangerous of Gotham's villains hesitate. But what if Batman's influence over Gotham goes beyond just the criminals? What if Batman has, in a way, infected Gotham with a culture of fear, not just in the criminals he fights, but in the very fabric of the city itself? This theory explores the idea that Batman's influence on Gotham isn't entirely a positive one. Yes, he keeps criminals in check, but he also creates a world where fear is the dominant force. Gotham's citizens live in constant fear, not just of the crime and chaos that run rampant through the streets, but of Batman himself. His silent, brooding presence is a constant reminder that Gotham is a city defined by violence and fear. What if Gotham's obsession with Batman, and Batman's own obsession with the city, has created a feedback loop? The more Batman operates in the shadows, the more the city is consumed by fear and darkness. The citizens of Gotham might idolize him, but they are also terrified of what his existence says about their own world. Could Batman have become a symbol of terror rather than hope? Gotham may rely on Batman to save them, but in doing so, they may be reinforcing the very fear that keeps the city trapped in its cycle of destruction. In this sense, Batman is a double-edged sword. He is both the protector of Gotham and the embodiment of its fear. His presence is both a safeguard and a reminder of Gotham's deepest flaws. Batman's greatest challenge may not be defeating crime, but confronting the fear he has instilled in the very city he's trying to save. 26. Batman and the Justice League, a man among gods. While Batman operates primarily as a lone wolf, he has been a crucial member of the Justice League, fighting alongside gods like Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. But what if Batman's role in the Justice League isn't just about fighting for justice? What if Batman's presence is a constant reminder of humanity's limitations compared to the superhuman beings around him? This theory suggests that Batman is the ultimate symbol of human potential, the one man who can stand toe-to-toe with gods, despite not having any superhuman abilities. He doesn't possess the powers of Superman or the divine might of Wonder Woman, but he relies on his sheer determination, intellect, and willpower to match them. Batman might not be one of the gods of the Justice League, but he has something they don't, the human experience. Could Batman's greatest contribution to the Justice League be his humanity? In a league of gods and superpowered individuals, Batman's presence serves as a reminder that humans, despite their frailties, can be just as heroic. His weakness is his greatest strength. His lack of powers means that Batman must constantly push himself beyond normal human limits. But there's a flip side to this. Batman's place among the gods might not just be a symbol of human potential, it might also be a reflection of his own insecurity. He knows that, unlike the others, he has no real powers. He has no backup in the way that Superman can rely on his strength, or Wonder Woman can rely on her divine gifts. Batman's true challenge isn't fighting crime in Gotham. It's finding a way to live in a world where others have powers he can never match. 27. Batman-Sep's future. The end of the Dark Knight. As Batman continues his crusade, the inevitable question arises: what happens when Batman can no longer fight? Batman is only human, after all, and there will come a day when he is physically unable to continue his war on crime. But what if Batman's legacy isn't in the fight itself, but in how he inspires the next generation? This theory suggests that Batman's true legacy lies in the heroes he has inspired: the Bat family, the Justice League, and all those who follow in his footsteps. Batman may eventually pass the torch, not because he is defeated, but because he understands that the mission he began doesn't need to end with him. What if, in the end, Batman's greatest achievement is not his ability to fight crime, but his ability to create other heroes who will continue his work long after he's gone? Batman might not be able to protect Gotham forever, but his influence will last. Even without the Bat, Gotham will always have its protector, and Batman's legend will live on through the next generation of crime fighters. 28. Batman and the Multiverse. The infinite versions of the Dark Knight. The concept of the multiverse has been a central theme in Batman's world, with multiple versions of the Dark Knight existing across different realities. From the Earth 2 Batman to the darker, more twisted version of Batman from the Flashpoint universe, the idea of Batman transcending a single timeline is both fascinating and mysterious. But what if all these versions of Batman aren't simply alternate realities? What if they are part of a deeper cosmic plan that stretches across time and space? This theory suggests that Batman is a constant throughout the multiverse, always emerging in different forms in response to the chaos and darkness in every universe. Rather than just being random variations of Bruce Wayne, these alternate Batmans could represent different aspects of the Batman persona, each version tailored to the specific struggles of their respective worlds. Whether it's the brutal, ruthless Batman in the Dark Knight Returns timeline, or the bizarre, horrifying Batman from the Batman Who Laughs, each one embodies a unique aspect of the Dark Knight's character, an aspect that is essential to maintaining balance in the multiverse. But the deeper question lies in why Batman continues to exist across infinite realities. Could Batman be part of a cosmic force, a necessary element to ensure that no universe descends into total chaos? What if each version of Batman is chosen to embody a certain type of justice that is unique to its world? but all share the same core mission to prevent complete destruction. This theory would suggest that Batman's presence is not just random or coincidental, it is essential to the very fabric of the multiverse. Could Batman be destined to exist in every reality, forever balancing the forces of light and dark? What does this mean for Bruce Wayne? Are there infinite versions of Bruce, all struggling with the same trauma and the same moral dilemma, yet each one finding different ways to fight? 29. Batman's psychological deterioration. What happens when he breaks? As we delve deeper into Batman's psyche, it becomes apparent that his life is a constant struggle between his moral compass and the trauma he's experienced. But what happens when Batman's mind finally breaks under the weight of his mission? What if, one day, he succumbs to the darkness within himself, losing the very thing that makes him Batman, his sanity? This theory explores the possibility that Batman's mind is constantly on the edge of collapse. He has never truly healed from the trauma of his parents' deaths, and his obsessive nature constantly drives him to the brink of emotional and psychological destruction. Every time he faces a villain, every time he takes down a criminal, Batman is slowly deteriorating. The pressure of maintaining his mission, his never-ending fight against crime, and his need to control everything in Gotham is taking a toll on him. What if there comes a breaking point when Batman loses the ability to discern right from wrong, or when his obsession with justice pushes him into dangerous territory? Could the constant battle against Gotham's villains, along with the emotional toll it takes, finally break him mentally? This theory suggests that Batman could one day cross the line, becoming the very thing he swore to fight against, a vigilante consumed by madness and a desire to control everything around him. It's possible that in this deteriorated state, Batman could become Gotham's most dangerous villain, someone who sees himself as the ultimate arbiter of justice and order, but who has lost touch with the very ideals he once upheld. Could Batman's greatest foe be himself? Could his eventual psychological collapse lead to a dystopian Gotham, where the Dark Knight becomes the shadow of terror he once fought against? 30. Batman and the role of technology. The Dark Knight sips dependence. One of the most iconic aspects of Batman is his arsenal of gadgets. From the Batmobile to the grappling hook, from batarangs to the Batcomputer, Batman uses technology to aid in his crime-fighting efforts. But what if Batman's reliance on technology is more than just a practical tool? What if it's a crutch that keeps him from addressing the deeper issues within himself? This theory suggests that Batman's dependence on technology is a way for him to avoid facing the reality of his human limitations. While other superheroes like Superman rely on their innate powers, Batman has built a world around him that compensates for his lack of superhuman abilities. He has created a fortress in the form of the Batcave, a fleet of vehicles, and an array of gadgets that enable him to perform feats beyond what a normal human could achieve. However, what if this reliance on technology represents a deeper fear? The fear that without it, Batman is simply Bruce Wayne, an ordinary man haunted by the loss of his parents, and unable to face the world without his technological arsenal. In a way, Batman's tools could be seen as a barrier between him and the world, a way for him to avoid confronting the emotional and psychological weight of his mission. This theory poses the question, what happens when technology fails Batman? What happens when his gadgets malfunction, or when the tools he relies on become obsolete? Could it be that Batman's greatest strength, his ability to adapt and outsmart his enemies using technology, could one day be his downfall? When faced with a situation where his gadgets can't help, will Batman be able to rely on his instincts and humanity, or will his dependence on technology have rendered him unable to cope? 31. The role of Gotham's citizens. Are they part of the problem? Gotham is a city full of people who are often just as morally gray as the villains Batman faces. The citizens of Gotham are often depicted as living in a state of fear and uncertainty, yet they continue to allow the city to spiral into chaos. What if Gotham's citizens, the very people Batman is trying to protect, are partly responsible for the corruption and crime that plague the city? This theory argues that Gotham's problems aren't just caused by criminals, but by the collective apathy of its citizens. The people of Gotham live in a city where crime is rampant, but they turn a blind eye to the injustice that occurs every day. They rely on Batman to fight their battles for them, but they do little to change the system that keeps them trapped in poverty and despair. Gotham's citizens are complicit in their own suffering. They allow crime to flourish, believing that a hero like Batman will always be there to clean up the mess. Could it be that Gotham's real enemy isn't the villains who terrorize the streets, but the people who turn a blind eye to the suffering around them? What if Batman's true struggle isn't against the criminal element, but against a society that is too broken to change? In this theory, Gotham's citizens must shoulder part of the responsibility for the city's decay. Batman can only do so much, and his endless war against crime might be futile if the people he's trying to protect don't take action themselves. Could Batman's crusade be a reflection of the failure of Gotham's society as a whole? What if Gotham is doomed not because of Batman's failure, but because its citizens refuse to confront their own complicity in the cycle of crime? 32. Batman's true enemy, time itself. Throughout his career, Batman has faced countless enemies. Some of them have been masterminds, while others have been embodiments of chaos. But what if Batman's true enemy isn't a villain at all, but time itself? The inevitability of age, the frailty of the human body, and the passing of time might be the greatest challenges Batman faces. This theory delves into the inevitability of Batman's physical decline. Time catches up with everyone, and despite his physical prowess and technological advancements, Batman is still human. As he ages, his body will eventually fail him. His injuries will accumulate, his reflexes will slow, and his mind will become burdened with the weight of years of combat and trauma. How long can Batman continue the fight before his body gives out on him? In many versions of Batman's story, the aging hero is faced with the reality of his own mortality. The Dark Knight Returns storyline portrays an older, battle-worn Batman who is forced to confront the limitations of his body. In the future, when Batman is no longer able to fight, will his legacy be enough to keep Gotham safe, or will the city descend into total chaos without its protector? Could Batman's greatest enemy be the inexorable passage of time and his struggle to continue fighting when his body can no longer keep up? 33. Batman's endgame, the ultimate sacrifice. As Batman's journey unfolds, we must ask ourselves, how does it end? Batman's fight for justice has been relentless, and as his body and mind deteriorate, it's clear that there will come a day when he can no longer continue his crusade. But what if Batman's ultimate end is not one of victory, but of sacrifice? This theory suggests that Batman's final act will be one of ultimate self-sacrifice, where he makes the decision to give his life for Gotham. Whether it's stopping a catastrophe, defeating his greatest enemy, or giving the city one final chance at redemption, Batman's endgame might involve him making the ultimate sacrifice. The idea of Batman sacrificing himself raises some fascinating questions about his legacy. Will his death be the moment Gotham finally heals? Or will it mark the beginning of a new era of chaos without the Dark Knight to guide them? What happens to Gotham when its protector is gone? Could Batman's final act be the only way to break the endless cycle of crime and fear? 34. Batman and the Court of Owls, a secret society pulling the strings. Gotham has always been a city full of dark secrets and shadowy figures, but what if there's one secret society that has been pulling the strings from the very beginning? Enter the Court of Owls, a clandestine group of powerful elites who have secretly controlled Gotham for centuries. But what if this secret society isn't just an external force working against Batman? What if they are the architects of his mission? This theory proposes that the Court of Owls has been manipulating Batman from the shadows, ensuring that Gotham remains in a constant state of crisis. The court's influence over Gotham stretches far beyond just politics and power. They might have been the ones to plant the idea of Batman in Bruce Wayne's mind in the first place. They could have subtly shaped Gotham's criminal landscape to ensure that Gotham would need a protector like Batman, and through their influence, they may have created the very conditions that Batman would later battle against. Perhaps Batman's entire existence has been part of a greater plan, one orchestrated by the Court of Owls to ensure that the city remains under their control. They might have created a hero who, while seemingly fighting against the corruption in Gotham, is unknowingly reinforcing their power structure. This theory raises chilling questions about the true purpose of Batman's war on crime. Is Batman fighting for justice? Or is he unknowingly advancing the goals of a much older, darker organization that controls everything behind the scenes? What if the Court of Owls has known about Bruce Wayne's alter ego from the beginning, and they have been playing him like a puppet, using Gotham's need for a Dark Knight to further their own agenda? 35. The Dark Knight's influence on Gotham's heroes. Is Batman the cause or the cure? Gotham's heroes are many, but none more prominent than Batman. Over the years, countless individuals have taken up the mantle of justice in Gotham, inspired by the Dark Knight's dedication to his mission. But what if Batman's influence on these heroes is not as positive as we assume? What if, in a twisted way, Batman's example is not one of inspiration, but of codependence and perpetuation of Gotham's chaos? This theory suggests that Batman's presence in Gotham has indirectly led to the rise of more heroes, but that these individuals may be driven by the same obsessions and darkness that Batman himself harbors. Take the many Robins, for example. Batman's mentorship of his sidekicks is often portrayed as a way for him to pass on his values of justice. But could it be that Batman is creating a family of vigilantes who share his obsessions? The tragedy of the Robins, with each one going through their own personal struggles, from Dick Grayson becoming Nightwing, to Jason Todd's tragic death, to Tim Drake's own questioning of Batman's methods, suggests that Batman's influence is not a simple story of mentorship, but one of deep emotional scars. In a similar vein, Batgirl, Nightwing, and other members of the Bat family are in many ways echoing Batman's obsession with justice and crime fighting. But by following his lead, are they simply perpetuating a cycle of violence and emotional trauma? Could it be that Batman's desire to fix Gotham has led to an ever-growing community of heroes, all haunted by the same darkness? Rather than being the cure to Gotham's ills, Batman might be a catalyst for creating even more individuals trapped in the cycle of obsession. In this sense, Batman's greatest flaw is his inability to recognize that his way of fighting crime isn't the only way. It's the only way he knows. What if Gotham's heroes are doomed to mirror Batman's path, repeating his mistakes and continuing his internal struggle without ever breaking free? 36. Batman sits, dual nature. The internal battle between Bruce Wayne and the Bat. The distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman is one of the most significant aspects of the character's identity. Bruce Wayne is a wealthy playboy, the philanthropist and public face of Wayne Enterprises, while Batman is the dark, brooding vigilante who strikes fear into criminals. But what if the conflict between Bruce Wayne and Batman goes far deeper than a simple mask? What if Bruce Wayne and Batman are not two distinct personas, but two opposing forces within the same man, two parts of a fractured psyche? This theory delves into the psychological conflict at the heart of Batman's identity. Bruce Wayne created Batman as a way to deal with the trauma of losing his parents. But over time, Batman has become more than just a coping mechanism. He has become an entity that constantly vies for control of Bruce's life. Bruce Wayne is constantly struggling to hold on to his humanity, to maintain his connections with others, while Batman is the embodiment of his darker instincts, pushing him into an isolated, single-minded mission. The internal battle between Bruce and Batman could be seen as a manifestation of the conflict between his need for human connection and his need to fight crime. Bruce Wayne is a man who wants to move beyond his past, to lead a life of compassion and philanthropy. But Batman's influence over him is so powerful that it constantly pulls him back into the shadows, into a world where the only way to find peace is through violence and control. In this theory, Bruce Wayne might not be a separate identity at all, but merely an illusion that Batman wears to fit into society. What if, deep down, Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the true personality? A darker, more obsessive side of Bruce that cannot be contained. Could it be that Bruce Wayne's desire for normalcy is doomed to fail because Batman's darker nature is simply too ingrained in him? 37. Batman's legacy in the future. What happens when he's gone? As Batman continues his war on crime, the inevitable question arises: what will Gotham be like without Batman? Even the Dark Knight cannot last forever, and the thought of his eventual death or retirement raises the question of what happens to Gotham when its protector is gone. Could Gotham survive without its caped crusader, or will it descend into even greater chaos, unable to function without Batman's constant vigilance? This theory explores the future of Gotham after Batman's death or disappearance. While Batman has trained many heroes to follow in his footsteps, including Nightwing, Batgirl, and even members of the Justice League, none of them are quite like him. They lack the same obsession, the same drive, the same singular focus that makes Batman the hero he is. While they may carry on his work, can anyone truly fill the void left by Batman's absence? What if Gotham's dependence on Batman has become so ingrained in the city's psyche that without him it cannot function? This theory suggests that Gotham has become so reliant on Batman that it has created a vacuum of power. The crime rates might skyrocket. Villains like the Joker and Two-Face could regain control, and the citizens of Gotham may begin to lose faith in the idea of justice itself. The city, having once been shaped by Batman's influence, might collapse into anarchy without him. However, there's another possibility. Batman's death might inspire a new era of heroes who will attempt to rebuild Gotham in a different way. Perhaps, after his passing, a new generation of vigilantes will rise who aren't bound by Batman's methods and moral code. In this way, Batman's legacy might live on, not in the actions of his direct successors, but in the ideals he left behind, a beacon of hope for future generations. The question is, would Gotham thrive without Batman? Or is the city doomed to collapse in his absence, unable to survive without its protector? 38. Batman is the ultimate tragic hero, a Shakespearean paradox. Batman's journey is one marked by deep tragedy, and at the heart of this tragedy is the question of whether he can ever truly achieve peace. Like many great literary heroes, Batman is a tragic figure, defined by his internal conflict and the choices he makes. His story is a never-ending cycle of loss, vengeance, and the pursuit of justice. But what if Batman's true tragedy is that he will never achieve what he seeks, true peace? This theory places Batman in the tradition of Shakespearean tragedy. He is a man defined by his flaws, particularly his obsession with justice and his inability to let go of the pain of his past. His tragic flaw, his inability to move on from the death of his parents, leads him into a life of conflict and sacrifice. No matter how many criminals he defeats, no matter how many villains he locks away, Batman can never heal the wounds of his past. In the end, his quest for justice becomes a fruitless endeavor, one that will never bring him the peace he so desperately desires. The Shakespearean paradox at the heart of Batman's character is that by fighting for justice, he is forever locked in a cycle of violence and loss. His greatest victory, Gotham's safety, is also his greatest tragedy, because it keeps him trapped in a world where peace is unattainable. Batman might never be able to escape his own past, and in trying to save Gotham, he sacrifices his own happiness and humanity. Could Batman's true fate be one of eternal struggle, never able to achieve the peace he so desperately seeks? Like Hamlet or Macbeth, his journey might be a tragic one, defined by his inability to break free from the very thing that haunts him. 39. Batman-Sep's relationship with Gotham. The city and its dark night are one. Gotham and Batman are inextricably linked. Gotham's decay, its corruption, and its chaos seem to feed off of Batman's presence. And conversely, Batman's existence is defined by the city he protects. But what if Gotham itself is more than just a setting or backdrop? What if Gotham is an active participant in shaping Batman and vice versa, in a way that goes beyond the physical and psychological? This theory suggests that Gotham and Batman are not separate entities, but are rather reflections of one another. Gotham's darkness is a direct result of the pain and trauma Batman carries within himself. Gotham, in many ways, mirrors the internal struggle that defines Batman, a place of hopelessness and despair, constantly seeking salvation, yet unable to escape the cycle of corruption. Every time Batman fights a villain, every time he stops a criminal, he is, in a sense, fighting his own darkness. Gotham's villains, the Joker, Bane, Penguin, and the others, represent not just the evils of the city, but also the internal forces within Batman that he cannot fully control. Gotham's many faces of corruption are a distorted reflection of Batman's own internal conflict, his need to control the chaos within himself and the city. But could it be that Gotham and Batman are locked in a cyclical relationship, one in which the city's darkness feeds Batman's need for justice, and Batman's existence ensures that Gotham will never heal? If Batman were to disappear, would Gotham find a way to rise above its corruption, or would it simply fall into greater despair, unable to survive without the Dark Knight to keep it in check? This theory suggests that the very existence of Gotham and its endless descent into chaos is a reflection of Batman's own inability to escape his past and find peace. The city and its protector are bound together in a never-ending struggle that will persist as long as Batman continues to fight. 40. Batman's rebirth. Could Bruce Wayne ever truly let go? In many iterations of Batman's story, Particularly in alternate universes or in future timelines, Bruce Wayne reaches a breaking point, a moment where he can no longer continue his fight. But what happens when Batman's time comes? What if Bruce Wayne could truly let go of his role as Batman, finally finding a way to reconcile his mission with his need for peace? This theory proposes a future where Batman, having battled crime for decades, finally faces the truth. Gotham can be saved not through his perpetual crusade, but by breaking the cycle of vengeance and violence. It suggests that the ultimate evolution of Batman's character would not be in his death, but in his ability to step away from the Bat, leaving the legacy to others and allowing Gotham to stand on its own. Could Bruce Wayne ever let go of Batman? Could he ever stop fighting, stop being the Dark Knight, and allow Gotham to find a different path? This theory delves into the idea of Batman's rebirth, not as a hero, but as a man who has found peace with his past, who no longer needs the Bat to define him. If Batman were to leave behind the cape and cowl, what would Gotham be like? Would it be able to stand without him? Or would it descend into even more chaos without the constant shadow of Batman looming over it? This theory asks whether Batman's greatest victory would be his ability to leave behind the role that has defined him and allow Gotham to heal in ways that he could never have imagined. 41. Batman's redemption. Is there a way for Bruce to move beyond vengeance? At the heart of Batman's mission lies vengeance, a need for justice driven by the trauma of losing his parents. But what if, despite all his good intentions, Batman's pursuit of vengeance is the very thing that keeps him trapped in an endless cycle of violence and darkness? Could there ever be a path for Batman to redeem himself, not through more crime fighting, but through personal healing? This theory explores the concept of redemption for Batman. What if, instead of fighting more criminals or defeating more villains, Batman's true redemption lies in breaking free from the trauma that has defined him since childhood? What if Batman needs to confront his deepest pain, the loss of his parents, and finally allow himself to heal, to let go of the obsession that has consumed him? In many ways, Batman's crusade is about retribution, but retribution alone cannot bring him peace. What if Batman's real battle is not against crime, but against himself, against the anger, the grief, and the vengeance that fuels him? What if true redemption comes not from saving Gotham, but from saving himself? This theory challenges the idea that Batman is the ultimate hero, suggesting that his greatest victory would be his ability to move beyond vengeance, to forgive himself, and to find a sense of peace within the chaos he's created. Could Batman ever let go of the darkness that defines him and embrace a future where he's no longer bound by the weight of his past? 42. Batman's place in the pantheon of heroes. Is he the ultimate example of human potential? In a world filled with gods and superpowered beings, Batman is unique. He is a hero, not because of superhuman abilities, but because of sheer willpower, intellect, and determination. But what if Batman is more than just a man? What if he is the ultimate example of human potential? This theory suggests that Batman represents the pinnacle of human capabilities. While characters like Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash rely on their superhuman gifts, Batman's greatest power is his ability to push himself beyond normal human limits. His mind is one of the sharpest in the world. His body is trained to perfection, and his willpower is unbreakable. What if Batman's real legacy is not in his ability to fight crime, but in his embodiment of the human spirit's potential? In many ways, Batman is a symbol of what humanity can achieve when it refuses to give in to its flaws. He represents the idea that, despite our limitations, we can rise above our circumstances and change the world for the better. In a universe filled with gods and aliens, Batman shows that a human can still make a difference, and that perhaps is his greatest strength. Could Batman's place in the pantheon of heroes be a reflection of humanity's ultimate potential? If he is not a superhuman being, but a man who achieves greatness through his own willpower, could he be the truest example of what it means to be human? 43. Batman and the Joker. A dark and twisted symbiosis. Batman and the Joker have always been presented as opposites. Batman, the symbol of order and justice, and the Joker, the embodiment of chaos and anarchy. But what if their relationship is not one of simple opposition, but one of mutual need and dependency? What if Batman and the Joker are bound together in a symbiotic relationship that neither can escape? This theory suggests that Batman and the Joker are more than just hero and villain. They are two sides of the same coin, eternally connected in a way that neither can escape. The Joker needs Batman because he is the only one who can truly challenge him, the only one who can match his chaotic nature with a relentless pursuit of justice. In turn, Batman needs the Joker because the Joker forces him to confront the very darkness that he tries so hard to suppress. Each time Batman defeats the Joker comes back stronger, more dangerous, and more twisted. This cycle is not just one of villainy and heroism. It is a cycle of creation, a cycle where Batman and the Joker are two parts of the same force, constantly shaping and reshaping one another. Could it be that the Joker is as essential to Batman's existence as Batman is to the Joker's? This theory challenges the conventional understanding of the Batman-Joker relationship, suggesting that they are not true opposites, but two halves of a twisted whole. Neither one can exist without the other, and perhaps that is the true tragedy of both their lives. 44. Batman's darkest secret. What if Bruce Wayne is hiding more than his identity? One of the most well-known secrets about Bruce Wayne is that he is Batman. But what if Batman's greatest secret isn't his dual identity, but something much darker? What if Bruce Wayne is hiding more than just the truth of his crusade? What if there is a part of him that he has never revealed, even to himself? This theory proposes that Batman's secret is far deeper than we've ever realized. Perhaps there is a hidden aspect of Bruce Wayne's psyche, something so dark and twisted that even Batman himself is unaware of it. Maybe Bruce Wayne's obsession with justice is a mask for something more sinister, something that has been buried deep within him since the death of his parents. Could it be that Batman is not just a man driven by vengeance, but someone who is trying to suppress a darker nature, a nature that could one day emerge and turn him into the very villain he seeks to destroy? What if Bruce Wayne's trauma has created a rift in his mind, a rift that hides a much more dangerous side of him, one that he cannot fully control? Theories like this suggest that Batman's real conflict might not just be with Gotham's criminals, it could be with the darkness within himself, a darkness that he may never fully understand. Could the greatest secret of all be the one that even Batman doesn't know about himself? 45. Batman and the mystery of his origin. Could Bruce Wayne have been chosen for the role? We all know the tragic story of how Bruce Wayne became Batman, the murder of his parents in a dark alley, an event that forever shaped his path. But what if this seemingly random tragedy was not just the catalyst for Bruce Wayne's transformation, but part of a larger cosmic design? Could it be that Bruce was destined to become Batman, chosen by fate or forces beyond his control? This theory posits that Bruce Wayne's path was set long before the night his parents were murdered. From the moment Bruce was born, there may have been something about him, a quality, a skill, or a purpose that marked him for this role. Maybe his parents' deaths were not just an unfortunate event, but part of a larger plan? What if Bruce was chosen by a force or a higher power to become the Dark Knight, to bear the weight of Gotham's sins and fight for its redemption? This theory digs into the idea of Batman as a figure of destiny, a hero who was chosen to fight crime rather than a man who simply decided to take up the mantle after tragedy struck. The question here is whether Batman is a product of his own will or if he was destined for this role from the start, manipulated by forces greater than he can comprehend. Could it be that the tragedy he experienced wasn't a random event, but a necessary sacrifice in the grand design of Gotham's salvation? What if Batman's rise was not the result of his personal choice, but part of a cosmic or supernatural plan, a higher calling that he cannot escape? 46. Batman and the question of morality. What if his code is a weakness? One of Batman's most defining features is his moral code, specifically, his refusal to kill. His no-kill rule is the foundation of his crusade against crime, and it sets him apart from the very criminals he fights. But what if this strict moral code is actually Batman's greatest flaw? What if his unwavering adherence to this rule prevents him from truly achieving justice and leaves him in a perpetual state of moral conflict? This theory suggests that Batman's code of ethics, particularly his refusal to take the lives of the criminals he fights, might be hindering his mission rather than helping it. Every time Batman encounters a villain like the Joker, Bane, or Ra's al Ghul, he is forced to hold back, to show mercy and restraint, even when the situation might call for a more extreme response. Could this unwillingness to cross the line be allowing Gotham's criminals to keep coming back stronger, more dangerous, and harder to defeat? In this sense, Batman's moral code could be seen not as a sign of strength, but as a weakness. His refusal to kill might be driven by fear, the fear that if he crosses that line, he will lose himself entirely and become just like the criminals he fights. But what if this fear is keeping him trapped in a cycle of moral indecision? Could Batman's inability to let go of this moral constraint ultimately result in the continued suffering of Gotham and the death of innocents? What if, by refusing to kill, Batman is allowing Gotham to be destroyed, because the only way to truly end the cycle of violence might be through decisive final action? 47. The Joker's true purpose. Is he Batman's greatest teacher? The relationship between Batman and the Joker is legendary, a never-ending game of cat and mouse where one is always trying to outsmart the other. But what if, in the twisted way that only the Joker could manage, he is actually Batman's greatest teacher? What if the Joker's presence in Batman's life serves a purpose far greater than just creating chaos? Could the Joker be teaching Batman the very lessons he refuses to learn? This theory posits that the Joker is not just a villain but a necessary force in Batman's life, forcing him to confront the very darkness that he tries to suppress. The Joker, in his twisted way, might be Batman's greatest teacher because he challenges everything Batman believes in. The Joker forces Batman to examine the nature of his mission, his moral code, and his understanding of justice. Every time the Joker tests Batman's resolve, he is pushing Batman to confront his own weaknesses, his obsession with control, his fear of failure, and his inability to let go of his past. In this theory, Batman's greatest test is not defeating the Joker, but understanding him. The Joker represents the chaotic, anarchic side of Batman's own psyche, the part of him that wants to let go of his control and embrace the darkness within. Could it be that the Joker's madness is the mirror through which Batman must examine his own sanity, rather than simply being a threat to Gotham? The Joker may be Batman's greatest teacher pushing him to understand his true nature and the consequences of his actions. In a strange, tragic way, the Joker is helping Batman grow, even if that growth is through pain, loss, and moral conflict. 48. Batman's mental health. Is he the most broken hero? Superheroes are often portrayed as larger-than-life figures who can take on any challenge without being affected by their personal struggles. But Batman is different. He's human, and his mental health has always been a central part of his character. The trauma of losing his parents, his obsessive need for justice, and his constant battle with Gotham's criminals have all taken a toll on his psyche. What if Batman's true struggle isn't just against crime, but against the mental and emotional toll of his mission? This theory examines the possibility that Batman is in fact the most broken hero of all. While Superman is often seen as the epitome of strength and resilience, and Wonder Woman embodies wisdom and compassion, Batman is defined by his brokenness. His obsession with his mission, his refusal to connect with others, and his inability to confront his own trauma have left him emotionally scarred. Batman's mental health is constantly deteriorating, and the question arises, how long can he keep fighting before the weight of his own pain consumes him? Could Batman's mental instability be his greatest vulnerability? What if the very thing that makes him the Dark Knight, his obsession with vengeance and justice, is also the thing that will ultimately destroy him? This theory suggests that Batman's emotional scars are deeper than anyone realizes. His refusal to accept help, to show weakness, and to acknowledge his own limitations makes him incredibly fragile. What if Batman's fight isn't just against the criminals of Gotham, but against himself, his inner demons, his unresolved grief, and his fear of ever truly losing control? 49. Batman and the power of legacy. Can he ever truly escape the shadow of his parents? Bruce Wayne's identity as Batman is defined by the traumatic event that shaped his life, the murder of his parents. The memory of their deaths is what drives him to fight crime, to prevent anyone from suffering as he did. But what if Batman can never truly escape the shadow of his parents, no matter how much he tries? What if their deaths have become the defining force of his life, shaping everything he does, for better or worse? This theory delves into the idea that Batman is not just a man haunted by his past, but a man defined by it. Everything he does, every decision he makes, is influenced by the trauma of losing his parents. His mission is not just about protecting Gotham, but about avenging the loss he endured as a child. Batman's need for justice is rooted in his inability to move past the death of his parents. He cannot escape the idea that their deaths were his fault, and that if he had been there, he could have saved them. But what if Batman's obsession with his parents' death is ultimately preventing him from moving forward? Could it be that his quest for justice is really a quest for closure, a way to make sense of the tragedy that defines his existence? What if Batman cannot truly heal because he cannot let go of the need for revenge and justice for his parents? In this theory, Batman's fight isn't just against Gotham's criminals. It's a fight against the legacy of his parents, a battle he will never truly win. Could it be that his true redemption lies not in fighting crime, but in confronting his grief and finding a way to live without the constant shadow of his past? 50. Batman's end. What happens when the bat falls? All heroes must face the inevitability of their own demise. Batman, despite his unparalleled skills, his intelligence, and his resilience, is no exception. This theory asks, what happens when Batman's time is up? What happens when the Dark Knight falls? Batman's eventual death is an almost inevitable part of his story. He's only human, and even the strongest of men eventually meet their end. But what does Batman's death mean for Gotham, for the world, and for the legacy he's created? Will Gotham fall into chaos without him? Will his message of justice die with him, or will it inspire a new generation of heroes? This theory imagines a future where Batman has sacrificed himself, either in the line of duty or simply from the toll of years of crime fighting. What happens to Gotham when its protector is gone? The city may be left without its Dark Knight, but will his legacy be enough to keep the forces of evil at bay? What if, in his final moments, Batman realizes that his war on crime was never about winning, but about inspiring others to continue the fight? Could his death be the final step in the creation of a new world, one where Gotham no longer needs the Bat, but can instead stand on its own? 51. The Dark Knight's legacy. What happens after his death? Batman's legacy is not just defined by his actions during his lifetime, but by how his presence influences Gotham after his eventual death. While Batman has undoubtedly shaped the world he lives in, what happens when the Bat is gone? This theory explores the consequences of Batman's death on the broader landscape of Gotham and the world at large. As Gotham's protector, Batman has created a lasting impact, inspiring countless individuals to follow his path. But the true question arises: will Gotham descend into chaos without its protector, or will his legacy create a new world order? The idea that Batman's influence could outlive him is compelling. Whether it's the Bat family or the next generation of heroes, Batman's core mission of justice will continue to inspire those who carry on his mantle. But is Batman's legacy one of salvation, or is it a burden? If Gotham becomes reliant on Batman's presence as a source of hope, what happens when that hope disappears? Will Gotham's reliance on its Dark Knight lead to more instability, or will the heroes that follow him be enough to carry the torch? This theory challenges the notion of heroism as a perpetual state and explores how Batman's influence could either uplift Gotham into a new era or doom it to further cycles of violence. In a way, Batman's greatest legacy might not just be his actions, but how his passing forces Gotham to stand on its own, for better or worse. 52. Batman Sip's relationship with the Justice League, the lone wolf among gods. Batman has always been the outsider in the Justice League, operating with the belief that despite the powers of Superman or the wisdom of Wonder Woman, he is the one who truly understands the nature of justice. His distrust in the League's methods has often caused friction between him and the other members, especially when it comes to moral issues, such as whether to take extreme action against their enemies. What if Batman's role in the Justice League isn't just about offering his skills, but about being the reality check for the more idealistic heroes? This theory suggests that Batman, as a human with no superpowers, sees the flaws in the League's approach, not just in their methods, but in their understanding of the world. Superman might have the power to protect the world, but Batman understands its darkness, and this knowledge makes him both indispensable and dangerous to the League. What if Batman is the one member of the Justice League who truly understands that power corrupts, that absolute control over the world isn't the answer? The League's reliance on their godlike powers might blind them to the darker realities of their world. Batman, in this sense, plays a critical role. He is the hero who understands the fragile nature of justice and the delicate balance required to ensure that the world doesn't fall under authoritarian control. Batman's role within the Justice League might be as much about saving the League from its own tendencies as it is about fighting the world's threats. Without Batman, the League might lose touch with the complexities of moral decisions and fall into a false sense of invincibility. Could Batman's job be as much about ensuring the League doesn't become a threat itself as it is about saving the world? 53. Batman sits duality. The fight between vengeance and justice. At the heart of Batman's mission is the struggle between vengeance and justice. While many see Batman as a hero, his motives are driven by a deep, almost obsessive desire for retribution after the murder of his parents. Batman is not only motivated by a need for justice, he is driven by an urge for vengeance. But what if these two concepts are at odds with each other? Could it be that Batman's desire for vengeance clouds his ability to truly administer justice? This theory suggests that Batman's entire crusade might be built on a flawed foundation, that his fight against crime is ultimately fueled by anger and the need to avenge his parents' deaths, rather than an impartial desire to bring about justice. Batman's obsession with crime fighting is personal. It is a means to validate the trauma he has experienced and to find some semblance of closure for the void left by his parents' murder. But does this obsession hinder Batman's ability to truly achieve justice? Every villain he faces, whether it's the Joker or Bane, becomes another avenue for his need to seek vengeance. In this sense, Batman's no-kill rule isn't purely a moral choice, it's an emotional one. He doesn't kill his enemies not because he's above them, but because he wants them to suffer. He wants them to experience the same pain he went through. Could this emotional drive be the flaw that prevents Gotham from ever truly healing? What if Batman's greatest enemy isn't the criminals he fights, but his own need for vengeance? Could the only way for Batman to truly bring justice to Gotham be for him to let go of his desire for retribution? 54. The Batman who never was. What if Bruce Wayne chose a different path? Bruce Wayne's tragic origin story, the death of his parents, sets him on the path to becoming Batman. But what if that pivotal moment had never happened? What if Bruce Wayne had been raised in a world without tragedy, without the haunting loss that shaped his entire life? What kind of man would he have been? Would he have still chosen to fight for justice, or would his life have taken a radically different turn? This theory imagines an alternate timeline where Bruce Wayne's parents never die, and he grows up as a typical heir to a vast fortune. Without the defining moment of his childhood, Bruce Wayne might have become a philanthropist or businessman, using his wealth and influence to make Gotham a better place, without resorting to the extreme measures of becoming a masked vigilante. What if Bruce Wayne never became Batman? So, how would Gotham have fared in this alternate timeline? Would the city have fallen into a deeper state of corruption without Batman's constant vigilance? Could Bruce have used his wealth to reform Gotham from within, or would it still have succumbed to the forces of crime? The thought of Bruce Wayne as a man who chose to heal the city through other means, political influence, economic development, or community building, challenges the very foundation of Batman's existence. This theory raises the question of whether Batman's existence was the result of fate, or whether he chose to become the hero Gotham needed, driven by a deep emotional wound that might have been healed through other means. Could the true path to Gotham's salvation have been through Bruce Wayne's mind, rather than his fists? 55. Batman as the ultimate watcher, the Dark Knight's moral surveillance. Batman is often portrayed as a vigilant, watchful protector who operates in the shadows, ensuring that no crime goes unchecked in Gotham. His presence is felt not just in the physical realm, but also in the psychological realm. His very existence is a constant reminder to Gotham's criminals that they are always being watched. But what if Batman's true role isn't as a hero, but as a moral overseer? keeping Gotham in a perpetual state of surveillance and control. This theory suggests that Batman functions not just as a crime fighter, but as a figure of constant surveillance, watching the city with an ever-present eye. His Bat computer, his network of informants, and his relentless vigilance all contribute to an overarching sense of control over Gotham's inhabitants. Gotham is never truly free. It is always under Batman's watchful gaze. This constant surveillance ensures that crime is always just one step away from being stopped, but it also raises questions about freedom and autonomy. Could Batman be creating a city where no one can act without his knowledge? A place where justice is never truly blind, because the Dark Knight is always watching. His presence in Gotham might not just be a force for good, but a form of moral surveillance, ensuring that no one can ever escape the shadow of his ideals. In a sense, Gotham becomes a city of total control, where the lines between justice and authoritarianism blur. What happens when a city's protector becomes its ultimate observer, ensuring that no one can escape the ever-watchful eyes of the Bat? Could Batman's greatest flaw be that his vigilance traps Gotham in a moral cage, where freedom becomes a distant memory? 56. Batman and the evolution of heroes. Is he the end of the line? Batman represents a particular brand of heroism, one that is human, driven by trauma, and motivated by vengeance. However, in a world of superhumans and godlike beings, is Batman's way of heroism evolving or even sustainable in the long term? Could Batman's form of justice be an anachronism, a relic of an older time, soon to be replaced by new kinds of heroes who are more in tune with the changing needs of the world? This theory explores the idea that Batman might be the last of a dying breed. While the world of superheroes evolves, with heroes becoming more powerful, more expansive in their abilities, and often more collaborative, Batman remains a lone figure, a man fighting a battle that seems endless and increasingly outdated. Could Batman's solitary war against crime be doomed to fail in an ever-changing world? Perhaps the future of heroism lies in collective efforts, in teamwork, and shared responsibility. The Justice League is the perfect example. A group of superheroes with distinct powers who fight together for the greater good. Batman, while a key member of the League, operates outside that structure, relying on his solo efforts rather than collective cooperation. This theory suggests that Batman, as an individual hero, may be an outlier in an age of growing hero networks and collaboration. Could his way of heroism become obsolete, replaced by new types of heroes who are less burdened by trauma and vengeance, and more focused on finding sustainable long-term solutions to crime and corruption? 57. Batman's greatest enemy. The concept of fear itself. Batman is often depicted as the embodiment of fear for Gotham's criminals. His very presence strikes terror into the hearts of the guilty. But what if Batman's greatest enemy isn't a villain, but the very concept of fear itself? What if Batman, by using fear as his primary weapon, has become the architect of his own psychological prison? This theory explores the idea that Batman's constant use of fear, not just against criminals but also within himself, is ultimately his greatest weakness. Batman's war on crime is driven by fear, the fear of losing control, the fear of Gotham succumbing to evil, and the fear of his own emotional trauma. Every villain he faces forces him to confront that fear, but in doing so, he never allows himself to move beyond it. Could Batman's greatest struggle be his inability to transcend fear itself? By relying on fear as a tool, he might be reinforcing the very emotions that imprison him. This theory suggests that in order to truly achieve peace, Batman must confront not just the criminals of Gotham, but the internal fears that drive his every action. Could his constant use of fear be the thing that prevents him from ever finding true freedom? 58. The Bat Family. Are they just extensions of Batman's obsession? The Bat Family, Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and others, have all become key players in Gotham's fight against crime, each taking on the mantle of protector in their own way. But what if the Bat Family isn't simply Batman's team of heroes, but extensions of his obsession with control and order? What if Batman's desire to create his own family of crime fighters is not just about mentorship, but about perpetuating his need for dominance and influence? This theory delves into the idea that Batman's need to save others, particularly the orphans, like Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, is part of his internal drive to maintain control. Batman may genuinely care for these individuals, but he also needs them to uphold his own sense of justice in a way that aligns with his own mission. He may be using these individuals as tools to enforce his vision of Gotham while also manipulating them into becoming the extensions of his own will. Consider how each member of the Bat Family is trained. They're molded into vigilantes who think like Batman, act like Batman, and fight like Batman. In many ways, they're not allowed to develop their own identities separate from his. Nightwing, for example, breaks away from Batman to establish his own identity, but even then, he is still often drawn back into Batman's world, haunted by the same sense of justice and responsibility. This theory suggests that Batman's legacy is not just about creating heroes, but about creating mini-Batmans, individuals who are shaped by his ideals and driven by the same obsessive need to control crime. It raises the question, are the Bat Family members really free, or are they simply following the same path that Batman has set for them? 59. The Unseen Influence. Is Gotham's corruption bigger than Batman? Gotham is known for its rampant crime, corruption, and darkness, and Batman has long fought to eradicate these forces. But what if Gotham's problems are too deeply entrenched to be solved by one man, even someone as powerful as Batman? Could it be that Gotham's corruption is too vast, too systemic, for Batman to truly make a difference? This theory challenges the belief that Batman is Gotham's savior, suggesting instead that he is merely a cog in the city's larger broken system. Batman may fight crime on the streets, but what if the true source of Gotham's problems lies in its core institutions? The city's political leaders, its financial systems, and its corporate giants. These forces might be even more corrupt than the criminals. Batman battles. The criminals are the visible faces of Gotham's rot, but the true cancer may be the hidden elite who control everything from behind closed doors. This theory suggests that Batman's efforts to combat crime are in vain because the real battle is not on the streets, but in the very structure of Gotham itself. Even if Batman were to defeat the crime bosses, the corrupt officials, and the supervillains, would Gotham truly change? If the system that sustains Gotham's darkness is still intact, then Batman's efforts may be like putting a bandage on a mortal wound. Could it be that Gotham's corruption is more systemic than anyone, including Batman, can address? 60. The Phantom Batman. What if Bruce Wayne was never Batman? One of the most intriguing questions about Batman's origin is what if Bruce Wayne never became Batman? What would Gotham look like without its Dark Knight, and how would Bruce's life have unfolded? This theory explores the possibility that Bruce Wayne, for all his wealth and drive, might never have chosen the path of crime fighting if circumstances had been different. What if, in an alternate timeline, Bruce Wayne grew up without the trauma of his parents' murder? What if his life took a different path, where he used his wealth and influence to reform Gotham from within, through philanthropy, politics, or technology, instead of taking on the role of a masked vigilante? Would Gotham have flourished under Bruce's guidance, or would the city have descended into even greater chaos without Batman to keep the worst of the villains in check? Could Bruce Wayne's destiny have led him down a completely different road, and if so, would Gotham have been better or worse for it? This theory raises the question of whether Bruce was always meant to be Batman, or whether his trauma, his pain, and the darkness of his city shaped his identity into something that might not have been his true path. Could Bruce have chosen another way, one that didn't involve the mask or the cape, and would the world have been better or worse for it? 61. Batman sips fear of Gotham, the fear of his own mission. Batman has long been a symbol of fear. He uses the fear of criminals to his advantage, striking terror into the hearts of Gotham's worst. But what if Batman's greatest fear isn't the criminals or the supervillains he faces, but his own mission? Could it be that Batman is terrified of the consequences of his crusade, both for himself and for Gotham? This theory suggests that Batman's obsession with justice is rooted in a deep fear of failure. He believes that if he doesn't constantly fight crime, Gotham will descend into total chaos. But what if Batman is afraid of the very mission he's devoted his life to? What if he fears that no matter how many criminals he locks away or how many villains he defeats, Gotham will always need Batman? The fear of never being able to truly leave Gotham or end his mission may be what drives Batman's constant vigilance and his inability to trust anyone else with the city's future. This fear might manifest in the way Batman distances himself from others, including his allies in the Bat family. He's terrified of them being compromised, of them falling into the same traps he did. His constant drive to control every aspect of Gotham's safety, even at the cost of his own happiness and relationships, stems from a fear of the unknown, a fear of a world without Batman. Could Batman's greatest enemy be not the villains he faces, but the very fear of failure and the inability to move on? 62. Batman sips failure in saving Gotham. The paradox of the Dark Knight. Throughout Batman's career, he's repeatedly vowed to save Gotham from itself. But despite all his efforts, the city remains just as corrupt and crime-ridden as it always was. Every time Batman defeats one villain, two more rise in their place. Does this suggest that Batman is in some way failing at his mission? What if Batman's greatest failure is not in his ability to fight crime, but in his inability to actually save Gotham? This theory explores the idea that Batman's crusade is doomed to fail, not because of his incompetence, but because of the very nature of Gotham itself. Gotham is a city built on corruption, crime, and moral decay. Even with Batman's unwavering commitment and relentless pursuit of justice, the city's darkness is too ingrained to ever be completely eradicated. Every time Batman fights a criminal, a new villain arises to take their place, making Gotham's salvation seem like an unattainable dream. What if Batman's failure is actually the central point of his journey? He fights for a cause that can never be fully realized, because Gotham is built on a foundation of corruption that cannot be undone through his methods alone. Could this paradox, that Batman will never truly save Gotham, but that he continues to fight anyway, be what defines him as a hero? In a sense, Batman's true legacy may not lie in his victories, but in his undying commitment to fight a battle he can never win. 63. Batman Sep's relationship with his enemies. A mirror image of himself. Batman's rogues gallery is full of iconic villains, the Joker, Two-Face, Catwoman, and others, each one representing a different facet of Batman's own personality and moral struggle. But what if Batman's greatest enemies aren't just criminals, but reflections of himself? This theory suggests that Batman's villains are, in many ways, mirror images of who he could become if he chose to embrace the darkness inside himself. Take the Joker, for example. He is everything Batman is not: chaotic, unpredictable, and without moral boundaries. But what if, in another life, Batman could have become just like the Joker? What if Batman's obsession with justice and his inability to trust anyone leads him down a path of madness and anarchy, much like the Joker? Similarly, other villains like Two-Face embody the duality within Batman himself. Two-Face is a man who was once a hero, but who was broken by tragedy and became a villain as a result of his inability to reconcile his two identities. Batman, too, is constantly struggling with his dual identity, Bruce Wayne and the Bat. What if, like Two-Face, Batman is always on the edge of losing his moral compass and giving in to the darker side of himself? This theory explores the idea that Batman's enemies are not just external threats, but representations of the internal struggles that Batman faces every day. They are warnings, showing him the dangers of losing control and embracing the chaos he so desperately fights against. In a way, Batman's greatest struggle is not against these villains, but against the part of himself that could become them if he falters. 64. Batman Sips Endgame, a final showdown with Gotham sips darkness. Batman has always stood as Gotham's protector, fighting its criminals, its corrupt system, and the eternal darkness that seems to permeate the city. But what if, in the end, Batman's final confrontation isn't with a supervillain or a criminal empire, but with Gotham itself, the very thing he's been trying to save? This theory imagines a future where Batman realizes that his greatest battle isn't against the criminal element of Gotham, but against the very nature of the city. Gotham is more than just a place. It's a manifestation of the darkness within Batman himself. Every villain he faces, every crisis he averts, is merely a reflection of Gotham's deep-seated decay. What if, after years of fighting, Batman finally comes to understand that Gotham can never be saved? It's a city built on corruption, greed, and chaos, and its very existence may require the presence of a dark knight to keep it in check. This final confrontation with Gotham's inherent evil could mark Batman's ultimate realization that the city will always need him, and he will always be bound to it. The very notion of Gotham's healing could be an illusion. In a tragic turn of events, Batman might come to see that his fight is perpetual. He may either choose to embrace this fate or find a way to let go, realizing that Gotham is not a city that can be healed, but a city that requires constant vigilance and constant sacrifice. Could Batman's greatest sacrifice be the realization that he will never truly save Gotham and yet must continue his crusade for eternity? 65. Batman Sips Legacy in the Multiverse, an eternal symbol of justice. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Batman mythos is the existence of countless versions of the Dark Knight across multiple realities. From the grim and dystopian Batman of The Dark Knight Returns to the optimistic, younger Batman of Batman the Animated Series, the concept of the multiverse allows for an endless variety of Batmans. But what if Batman's true legacy isn't confined to just one reality? What if Batman's legacy transcends dimensions, existing in every possible world as a symbol of justice? This theory proposes that Batman, as a concept, is immortal. Across all the infinite realities of the multiverse, there is always a Batman. Even if one version of Bruce Wayne dies or fails, there will always be another to pick up the mantle. Each Batman is a reflection of the ideals and struggles that are universal to humanity: the desire for justice, the need to protect the vulnerable, and the constant battle against darkness and corruption. In this theory, Batman is not just a man, but an idea, a symbol of hope that will never fade. Each version of Batman represents a different aspect of the human spirit, from the stoic and isolated knight in Gotham to the more collaborative and empathetic hero of the Justice League. Could it be that Batman's true legacy lies not in his individual actions, but in the fact that no matter the universe or the timeline, the Dark Knight will always rise to fight for justice? What does this mean for the concept of heroism? Perhaps Batman's true strength is his ability to inspire countless versions of himself to keep fighting the good fight, in any world, in any era. 66. Batman and the failure of Gotham Sep's justice system, a broken system in need of true reform. For all his efforts, Batman is essentially a product of a broken system. Gotham's justice system is deeply flawed, with corrupt officials, outdated laws, and a criminal underworld that thrives despite his best efforts. But what if Batman's greatest challenge isn't crime, but the justice system itself? Could it be that Gotham's system is beyond saving and that Batman's struggle is inherently futile because the system is designed to fail? This theory suggests that Batman's relentless war on crime isn't just a fight against Gotham's villains. It's a critique of the system that allows them to exist in the first place. The idea is that Gotham's law enforcement, courts, and political structures are so deeply corrupted that they cannot function properly. Every time Batman defeats a criminal, the system fails to properly rehabilitate them or remove the sources of their corruption. This creates a cycle in which Gotham constantly breeds new criminals, making Batman's fight an endless one. Could it be that Batman's crusade is flawed by the very system he's trying to protect? What if Gotham needs real structural reform rather than just a masked vigilante cleaning up the mess? The theory argues that Batman is fighting the symptoms, not the root cause. As long as the system remains broken, Gotham will continue to be a breeding ground for crime and villainy. What if the true solution to Gotham's problems isn't Batman's nightly patrols, but a complete overhaul of the city's legal and political structures? Could Batman ever accept that his method of fighting crime is an incomplete solution, and that real justice can only come from rebuilding the system itself? 67. Batman and his fear of legacy. The burden of the Bat. Batman is a man defined by his mission to protect Gotham at all costs. But what happens when Batman realizes that his crusade is not just about protecting the city, it's about creating a legacy that will outlive him? What if Batman's greatest fear is not his own death, but the idea that his legacy might be a burden for those who follow him? This theory proposes that Batman's relentless fight against crime is not only motivated by his trauma and desire for justice, but by a fear that his legacy will become a weight too heavy for the next generation to bear. Batman has surrounded himself with allies and adopted a Bat family, each of whom has the potential to take on the mantle of Gotham's protector. But what if, in his heart, Batman fears that the legacy he's building will be more of a curse than a gift? This fear is reflected in Batman's hesitation to allow his allies to fully take on the mantle of the Bat. Even when he trusts them, he can't help but feel that Gotham is his responsibility, and his alone. Could it be that Batman sees the idea of his legacy as a burden that others will never be able to fully carry? What if, in the end, Batman is afraid that the weight of Gotham will crush those who follow in his footsteps, just as it has nearly crushed him? This theory asks, can Batman's legacy be a force for good if it's built on the constant need to fight, the need to protect Gotham from itself? What happens when the man behind the mask can no longer shoulder that burden? 68. Batman and the concept of time. Will Gotham ever heal? Batman's war on crime is a battle that is constantly being fought. Yet the question remains, will Gotham ever truly heal, or is it destined to be trapped in an endless cycle of corruption, crime, and fear? What if Batman's fight is never truly about winning, but about preserving Gotham in its current state, ensuring that it remains a city that always needs a hero? This theory explores the paradox of Batman's crusade, that Gotham may be a city that requires constant vigilance, but that vigilance ensures it never truly improves. The cycle of crime and violence may be so ingrained in Gotham's fabric that any attempt at peace is doomed to fail. Gotham is a city in constant flux, constantly on the edge of ruin. Could it be that Gotham needs Batman not just to fight crime, but to maintain this state of balance, where there is always an enemy to defeat, always a villain to face, and always a hero to protect it? What if Batman's ultimate challenge is not to save Gotham, but to maintain the illusion that it can be saved? Gotham might need Batman not just as a protector, but as a stabilizing force, someone who ensures that the city never tips into complete anarchy, but never fully heals either. This raises a chilling question. Is Batman's fight against crime a fight for Gotham's survival, or is it a fight to ensure that the city never escapes its cycle of darkness? 69. Batman and the ethics of vigilantism. What if he's doing more harm than good? Batman has always been a vigilante, operating outside the law to bring justice to Gotham. But what if vigilantism itself is not the solution, but part of the problem? What if Batman's decision to operate outside the legal system, bypassing the established justice process, actually contributes to Gotham's corruption and instability? This theory delves into the ethics of vigilantism and asks whether Batman's actions are truly for the greater good, or whether they are creating more harm than help. By fighting crime outside the law, Batman sets a dangerous precedent. What happens when others, inspired by Batman, take justice into their own hands, ignoring the very rules that keep society functioning? Could it be that Batman's refusal to work within the system is contributing to Gotham's problems? What if the very act of taking the law into his own hands is perpetuating the chaos he seeks to eliminate? This theory suggests that Batman's moral code, while admirable in some respects, might actually be a form of authoritarianism, where his vision of justice supersedes the rule of law, creating a dangerous and unstable environment. Could Batman's vigilantism be what Gotham needs, or is it actually making things worse in the long run? 70. The future of Gotham. Will the Dark Knight's work ever end? As we look toward the future of Gotham and Batman's role within it, one question looms large. Will Batman's work ever end? Batman has dedicated his life to saving Gotham, but what happens when he can no longer continue the fight? Will Gotham be left to fend for itself, or will someone else rise to take his place? This theory explores the idea of Batman's inevitable retirement and what Gotham would look like without him. Could the city ever survive without its Dark Knight, or would it descend into an even darker age of crime and chaos? The question of who will fill Batman's shoes is not just a logistical one, but a philosophical one. Does Gotham need a Batman to survive, or can it evolve beyond its reliance on him? In this theory, Gotham's future is tied to the evolution of Batman's legacy. Perhaps Gotham's healing will come not from the constant presence of the Bat, but from the city learning to stand on its own, independent of the hero who has protected it for so long. 71. Batman's relationship with Gotham's police, an uneasy alliance or a necessary rivalry. Batman's relationship with the Gotham City Police Department (GCPD) is one of the most complex and layered in his entire story. While there are moments where Batman works alongside the police, most of the time he operates outside the law, working in the shadows while the police force remains in the light. But what if this ongoing tension isn't just about Batman's vigilante methods? What if Batman's relationship with the police is a necessary part of Gotham's fragile ecosystem? This theory proposes that Batman's uneasy alliance or constant friction with the GCPD is the key to understanding Gotham's dynamic of order and chaos. The GCPD, particularly its commissioner, James Gordon, represents the law, justice, and the fragile hope that Gotham can reform through institutional means. Batman, on the other hand, represents a darker form of justice, one that operates outside the traditional systems. Their relationship is one of mutual respect, but also one of constant tension. Batman's methods often undermine the very system that Gordon is trying to uphold. But what if Gotham needs this tension to survive? If Batman were to fully align with the GCPD, he might end up legitimizing an already broken system, making it even harder for Gotham to escape its cycle of crime and corruption. On the flip side, if Batman were to sever ties completely and operate solely on his own, Gotham could fall into an even deeper spiral of lawlessness. Their relationship is a delicate balance, where each provides something the other cannot. Batman provides fear and deterrence, while the police provide institutional oversight. Could it be that Gotham's unique need for both systems, one grounded in order and one based on fear and vengeance, is the only thing keeping the city from total collapse? 72. Batman's role in the rise of supervillains. Is he creating his own enemies? Batman's rogues gallery is famous for its eclectic and dangerous villains, from the chaotic Joker to the tragic Two-Face, the calculating Riddler, and the ruthless Bane. But what if Batman isn't just fighting these villains? What if he is, in part, responsible for their creation? Could it be that Batman's presence in Gotham has fueled the rise of his greatest enemies? This theory posits that Batman's constant war against crime and villainy has inadvertently created the very threats he faces. Gotham, with its deeply entrenched corruption, may have always had its criminals and villains, but Batman's rise as a Dark Knight may have served as a catalyst for the emergence of more dangerous and psychologically complex foes. As Batman's crusade grows, so too does the complexity and viciousness of the villains he faces. Villains like the Joker, in particular, may have found their own motivation and purpose in their opposition to Batman. Take the Joker, for instance, a villain born from Batman's quest for justice, his moral code, and his need to control Gotham's chaos. The Joker's obsession with Batman is rooted in the idea that Batman represents the ultimate symbol of order, and for the Joker, order is something that must be destroyed. But what if Batman's very existence provokes the creation of this kind of chaos? Could it be that Batman, by choosing to fight the darkness, has inadvertently attracted more darkness into the world? What if, by embodying the role of Gotham's protector, Batman is creating his own greatest enemies? Could the villains he faces be born out of his need to fight and control, representing a twisted mirror image of himself and his own psychological wounds? 73. The Batman Who Laughs. What if Batman succumbed to his own darkness? The concept of the Batman who laughs from the dark multiverse storylines has captivated fans for its terrifying take on Batman's potential for evil. In this alternate reality, Batman becomes the Joker, his mind twisted and broken after killing the Joker and being infected by his madness. The theory behind this character suggests that if Batman were to fully embrace the darkness within him, he could become the very thing he fights against. This theory examines the possibility that Batman's relentless battle against crime and his obsessive nature could lead him down a darker path. Much like the Batman who laughs. What if Batman's internal conflict, his inability to reconcile his need for control with the chaotic world around him, leads him to become a twisted version of himself? The Batman who laughs represents the darkest possibility, a Batman who crosses the line, who embraces vengeance and control to the point where he no longer sees the difference between justice and madness. If Batman were to fully embrace this darkness, could he become just like the criminals he fights? The theory suggests that Batman's greatest fear isn't losing to Gotham's villains, but becoming like them. The Batman who laughs serves as a warning, a potential future where Batman's mind breaks completely and he becomes an agent of destruction instead of justice. The question is, could Batman's obsession with justice eventually break him, and would the line between hero and villain become impossible to distinguish? 74. The tragedy of Batman. What if his mission is his own undoing? Batman has often been portrayed as a man with a singular purpose to protect Gotham from crime, corruption, and darkness. His mission is everything to him, and he sacrifices everything for it: his relationships, his peace of mind, and even his own happiness. But what if Batman's greatest tragedy is that he will never succeed? What if his mission is by its very nature a doomed one? This theory explores the idea that Batman's unwavering commitment to his cause, his inability to stop, and his refusal to rest is ultimately what will lead to his undoing. Batman fights an endless battle, a battle that he can never win. Every time he defeats one villain, another rises to take their place. Gotham is a city built on corruption, and as long as it remains in that state, Batman's fight will never end. This theory suggests that Batman's entire existence is defined by a tragic, never-ending cycle. The more Batman tries to save Gotham, the more the city needs him. It's a cycle that, by its very nature, keeps Gotham in a constant state of crisis. Batman's sacrifice, his endless fight, his rejection of happiness, and his emotional isolation may be the true tragedy of his existence. He may never be able to break free from this mission because it's the only thing that defines him. Could Batman's tragic flaw be that he is bound to a never-ending battle that ultimately consumes him? The idea of Batman as a hero trapped in his own mission, unable to escape the very thing that gives his life meaning, raises the question of whether he will ever find peace. 75. The role of Gotham's citizens. Could Gotham save itself without Batman? While Batman is often seen as Gotham's protector, the question arises, can Gotham save itself without him? This theory imagines a future where Batman is no longer present in the city, and the citizens of Gotham are forced to take responsibility for their own fate. What happens when the Dark Knight is no longer there to protect them? This theory examines the possibility that Gotham's reliance on Batman has created a city that cannot function without him. Gotham is a city in constant crisis, and while Batman is the one who fights the criminals on the streets, the people of Gotham have, in many ways, become passive participants in the city's survival. They rely on Batman to protect them from crime, corruption, and chaos. But what happens when Batman no longer shows up? Could the citizens of Gotham rise to the occasion, taking matters into their own hands to rebuild their city? The theory suggests that Gotham, while in constant turmoil, is still populated by people who are capable of change. If Batman were to retire or die, could a new wave of leaders and everyday citizens rise up to take responsibility for their own future? What if Gotham's healing lies not in a hero who swoops in from the shadows, but in the citizens of the city finding their own strength and resolve? Could Gotham find a way to break free from its reliance on Batman and create a future where it isn't defined by crime, corruption, and fear? 76. The death of Batman, a self-destructive hero. Batman is often seen as a figure of endurance, strength, and resilience. He is willing to sacrifice everything for Gotham, from his own well-being to his personal happiness. But what if Batman's willingness to sacrifice is actually his greatest vulnerability? What if Batman's ultimate fate is one of self-destruction, where his dedication to his mission leads to his own downfall? This theory explores the idea that Batman's relentless drive to save Gotham may ultimately be his undoing. He sacrifices his physical health, his emotional well-being, and his relationships to continue the fight. But at what cost? Batman's body is constantly battered by his battles, and his mind is slowly eroded by years of trauma and violence. Could it be that Batman's obsession with justice and vengeance will lead him to a point where he can no longer continue? His self-destructive tendencies, his refusal to accept help from others, his refusal to ever rest or allow himself peace, might eventually result in his collapse. The theory suggests that Batman's greatest enemy isn't Gotham's criminals or supervillains, but the weight of his own sacrifices. Could Batman eventually push himself so far that he can no longer fight, that his body and mind break down? What if Batman's true final battle is against his own self-destructive nature, and his death is the inevitable result of a hero who has given everything for a cause that, in the end, consumes him? 77. Batman's legacy and the question of immortality. Will Batman ever die? Batman's immortality is not necessarily literal, but symbolic. His legacy, his symbol, and his core ideals have transcended the person of Bruce Wayne and, in a sense, made Batman an eternal figure. But could there ever be a world in which Batman is no longer needed, or more chillingly, a world where his legacy is a curse, trapping Gotham in an endless cycle of needing the Bat? This theory posits that Batman's true immortality lies not in his physical survival, but in his legacy and the symbol he's created. Gotham relies so heavily on the Bat that its entire structure and justice system may be built around the idea that Gotham needs a protector who is both above and outside the law. This idea leads us to ask the question, what happens if Gotham no longer needs Batman? Could Gotham rise above its reliance on a lone vigilante, or is the city trapped in a perpetual state of needing the Dark Knight? As time passes, Batman may come to realize that his role in Gotham's survival has become a trap, that as long as he is alive, Gotham will never heal. His legacy may persist long after his death, with future generations of Gothamites either embracing the Batman persona or succumbing to the same destructive patterns Batman fought against. The question remains, will Batman's legacy be a true symbol of justice, or a perpetual reminder that Gotham can never escape its darkness? Is Batman's immortality a gift or a curse? 78. Batman as a symbol. The Dark Knight's influence on Gotham's morality. Batman is often depicted as a symbol of justice and hope, But could he also be a symbol of something darker, a force that has inadvertently warped Gotham's moral compass? Batman's presence in the city forces Gotham to confront crime in extreme ways. But what happens when the citizens of Gotham internalize his methods and ideals, bending their own morals to fit the Bat's image? This theory examines the possibility that Batman's methods, while seemingly noble, have influenced Gotham in ways that perpetuate the city's moral decay. Gotham's criminals live in constant fear of the Bat. But what about the regular citizens? Batman's symbol might inspire hope, but it could also inspire fear and anxiety. The public at large may see the necessity of taking justice into their own hands, which could lead to a moral gray area where individuals justify extreme actions as necessary for the greater good. Moreover, Batman's near-constant vigilance and his refusal to allow anyone else to protect Gotham creates a dangerous precedent. Citizens may feel justified in breaking the law, using Batman's methods as an excuse for vigilante behavior. In this sense, Batman's existence could warp the line between justice and vigilantism, creating an atmosphere where Gotham becomes more accustomed to dealing with problems through fear rather than true legal or moral solutions. Could Batman's symbol be a double-edged sword, promoting justice, but also causing Gotham to lose its moral compass? 79. Batman's own fear. What if his true power lies in his ability to face his darkest fears? Batman's greatest strength is often described as his mental resilience and his ability to confront his enemies head-on. But what if his true power is rooted in his ability to confront his own deepest fears? His fear of becoming like the very criminals he fights, his fear of losing control, and, perhaps, his fear of the darkness inside himself. This theory explores the idea that Batman's greatest strength isn't just his intellect, skill, or resources, but his ability to face the inner demons that haunt him and to continue the fight in spite of them. Batman is constantly facing his fears, whether it's confronting his fear of his own vulnerability, his fear of the city's destruction, or his fear of becoming a tyrant. But what if his real test is facing these fears on an emotional and psychological level? While Batman is often depicted as a figure of unwavering strength, his true power might come from his recognition and acceptance of his fears. By acknowledging his fears, Batman has learned to control them, using them as a force to propel his mission forward. This theory suggests that the reason Batman can stand toe-to-toe with his most dangerous enemies, and even himself, is because he has already faced his darkest fears and chooses to keep fighting, regardless of the personal cost. Could Batman's greatest struggle not be external but internal? What if his true battle is not against Gotham's villains, but against the fear that threatens to consume him from within? 80. The role of Gotham's history. Is Gotham doomed to repeat itself? Gotham's history is as dark and troubled as its present. The city is built on corruption, crime, and political intrigue, with each generation seemingly passing down the same cycle of darkness. Could it be that Gotham's very history is doomed to repeat itself, creating a city that will always need Batman to keep it from fully descending into chaos? This theory proposes that Gotham's fate is tied to its history, and that this history is inescapable. No matter how many times Batman defeats his enemies, no matter how many times he cleans up the streets, Gotham always seems to fall back into its old patterns. The city's history is so deeply rooted in crime and corruption that it perpetuates itself, forcing each new generation to face the same struggles. In this view, Gotham is not just a city, but a reflection of the cyclical nature of its own history. Every generation of Gotham's citizens faces the same issues, from crime and corruption to economic disparity and political corruption. Could Gotham be a city trapped in a time loop, a place where progress is always undone by the forces of darkness that have shaped its history? What if Gotham, by its very nature, requires a figure like Batman to keep it from falling into total disarray? Could it be that Gotham is doomed to always need a dark protector, and that Batman's endless war is the only thing keeping the city from unraveling? 81. Batman's influence on Gotham's villains. Are they a mirror of Batman's own flaws? Gotham's greatest villains are often seen as Batman's opposites: the chaotic Joker, the calculating Riddler, the tragic Two-Face, and the ruthless Bane. But what if Batman's greatest enemies aren't just the embodiments of crime, but mirrors of his own internal struggles? What if Batman's villains are in essence what he could become if he allowed himself to fully embrace the darkness within him? This theory suggests that Gotham's villains are not just adversaries, but reflections of Batman's own flaws, fears, and vulnerabilities. The Joker represents the chaos that Batman strives to control, while Two-Face symbolizes the duality within Batman himself, the battle between Bruce Wayne and the Dark Knight. The Riddler's obsession with intellect mirrors Batman's own need for control and order, while Bane's physical strength and brutal tactics represent the force of violence that Batman constantly fights to avoid. In this view, Batman's villains aren't just separate individuals. They are aspects of himself that he must constantly battle. Gotham's villains are Batman's psychological opponents, challenging him to confront his own weaknesses, doubts, and limitations. By defeating them, Batman is essentially fighting the darker aspects of his own psyche. Could it be that Batman is not just fighting external enemies, but his own potential for darkness? In a sense, the greatest challenge Batman faces may be the internal battle against the darkness that resides within him, a darkness that his enemies embody. 82. Batman sits relationship with Gotham sips pour. A class struggle in the shadows. Gotham is a city defined by stark social divides. The rich, the powerful, and the elite live in their penthouses and estates, while the poor and disenfranchised struggle to survive in the city slums. While Batman is often seen as a hero fighting crime, what if his crusade is, at its core, a battle between class struggles? What if Batman's war on crime is a response to the systemic inequality that keeps Gotham's poorest citizens trapped in a cycle of poverty and violence? This theory suggests that Batman's fight against Gotham's criminal element is, in many ways, a battle against the class structure that creates those criminals in the first place. Gotham's poor are often pushed into lives of crime because of their lack of access to resources, education, and opportunity. Batman fights these criminals. But what if the real solution lies in addressing the underlying social issues that lead to crime? Batman's crusade is one of vengeance and justice, but could it also be one of class warfare? What if, in his fight against crime, Batman is inadvertently protecting the status quo, upholding a system that benefits the wealthy and keeps the poor oppressed? Could it be that Batman's war on crime is only a temporary solution, and that Gotham will never truly heal until the city addresses the deep-seated inequality that defines it? 83. Batman's fear of redemption. Could he ever allow himself to be saved? Despite his mission to protect Gotham, Batman has always been defined by a deep sense of personal trauma. His inability to heal from the death of his parents and the weight of his responsibilities has left him emotionally scarred. But what if Batman's greatest obstacle isn't the criminals he faces, but his own inability to allow himself to be redeemed? What if Batman's fear of redemption, his fear of truly letting go of his pain, is what keeps him trapped in his cycle of violence? This theory explores the idea that Batman's inability to accept help or embrace love stems from a deep fear of redemption. He believes that his mission is so important, so sacred, that he must carry the burden alone. But what if this sense of isolation is what ultimately holds him back from healing? Could it be that Batman's true victory is not in saving Gotham, but in allowing himself to be saved, to accept that he is not alone, and that his pain doesn't have to define him? Could Batman ever embrace the idea that redemption is not about fighting endless battles, but about accepting help and finding peace? The idea that Batman's greatest challenge isn't external, but internal, the battle to accept redemption and allow himself the chance for personal healing, is one of the most profound in his journey. As we bring our exploration of Batman's world to a close, it's clear that the Dark Knight remains one of the most complex and multifaceted characters ever created. From his psychological battles with his own trauma and moral code to his intricate relationships with Gotham's citizens and his many enemies, Batman's journey is as much an internal struggle as it is a battle against the darkness of Gotham. Throughout this collection of theories, we've seen Batman not just as a hero, but as a symbol, one that embodies the triumphs and tragedies of humanity. His refusal to kill, his obsession with control, and his ability to constantly adapt to new challenges make him both a beacon of hope and a reflection of the dark aspects of the human psyche. Every villain he faces is not just an external adversary, but often a mirror of his own flaws and fears. Batman's legacy, as a protector and a symbol of justice, extends far beyond the streets of Gotham. He represents the eternal struggle between order and chaos, vengeance and justice, light and darkness. But his story is also one of sacrifice, of a man who continually gives everything for a city that may never be fully saved, fighting a battle that may never be won. As we consider the future of Gotham and Batman's place in it, we are left with a question: can Gotham ever truly heal, or will Batman's presence forever be a reminder that some cities and some souls are too broken to be saved? Theories abound that Batman's greatest enemy may not be the criminals he fights, but the very system and city that necessitate his existence. Yet, in his fight against all odds, Batman remains one of the most powerful and tragic figures in modern mythology. Whether Batman eventually finds peace, whether his legacy is one of inspiration or a continued struggle, one thing is certain: the Dark Knight will forever be a symbol of justice, a reflection of the human condition, and a hero who has captured the hearts and minds of generations. This journey through Batman's world, from his complex psyche to his symbolic meaning, presents a narrative rich with themes of fear, redemption, and the nature of heroism. We have explored alternate possibilities, examined his deepest fears, and questioned the very purpose of his crusade. Ultimately, Batman's legacy is one that invites endless interpretation, a story that will continue to evolve as long as Gotham exists. Thank you for following this exploration into the heart of the Dark Knight. Whether you're a lifelong fan or a newcomer to Batman's world, one thing is clear: Batman will remain a symbol, a mystery, and a hero forever.